Morning. Please keep your cameras on. All of you keep your cameras on so that I can see you. Salipta, Ashwin, Harshvardhan, Komal, Harsh. Yes, everyone, please switch on the webcams and please keep your cameras on throughout the session. Yeah, thank you so much. So let's start with the analysis of part 2 of the economic survey. In the first part of the analysis of economic survey, I had taken up the discussion of the chapter 1, which was a brief overview of the Indian economy, as well as chapter 3, which was dealing with the public finance. In the chapter 3, not only did we discuss the highlights of economic survey, we also discussed the important taxation proposals introduced in this year's budget. So we'll take it forward from where we had left in the last class. So in today's class, I shall start my discussion with chapter 4, which is monetary management and financial intermediation, a good year. So this particular chapter is basically talking about the monetary policy which was formulated by the RBI in the financial year 22-23. It also talks about what developments have taken place in the field of monetary policy, what has happened to the financial position of the banks, NBFCs, and all of these details it talks about. So let's start with a brief understanding about this particular chapter. So this chapter basically highlights that the rate of inflation at a global level, particularly in advanced economics, it highlights that the rate of inflation has increased to almost 7.2% in the year 22-23. And according to economic survey, this rate of inflation in the advanced economies, this is highest since 1982. So I can see since 1982 means last 4 decades, last 40 years, the rate of inflation in the advanced economies has reached an all-time high. So what are the reasons for the rising global inflation, particularly in the advanced economies? The first reason is supply chain disruptions during the COVID-19 pandemic. So as part of this supply chain disruptions, there was acute shortage of some critical commodities, including that of semiconductors. So it was more of a supply side shock leading to inflation. Second reason is to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic, the central banks in the advanced economies such as the US Fed Bank, it pumped in huge amount of money into the economy. And when the lockdown was lifted, when things resumed, the excess money supply in the economy started leading to a rising inflation. So you can see this side, the inflation was caused because of demand side, increase in demand. And this side, it was basically because of supply side. So it was combination of both supply side inflation as well as demand side inflation particularly in the advanced economies. And third reason is supply chain disruptions which took place because of Russia-Ukraine war. So because of Russia-Ukraine war, there was increase in prices of petroleum products, food prices, as well as fertilizer prices. So this also led to a rising global inflation. So to counter the rising inflation, there was synchronized rate hikes by the global central banks. Now look at the word. The word is synchronized. Synchronized, it means that almost all the global central banks started increasing the policy rates. So policy rates were increased in US, Europe, and almost all the developed economies. And this increase in policy rates by the global central banks, it had a adverse effect on the Indian economy. And as discussed in the last year's economic survey, this adverse impact on the Indian economy, we also refer to it as taper tantrum. So in UPSC prelims examination, you could get a question about what is the impact of synchronized rate hikes by global central banks, or you could get a question about what is the meaning of taper tantrum and its effect. So let's see here with respect to taper tantrum. So we know that in US they started to increase the policy rates. So the US Fed Bank had to suck out the money. To suck out money, the US Fed Bank started buying less bonds. If it is buying less bonds, think what will happen to the demand for bonds in the US market. The demand for bonds will reduce. As the demand for bonds reduce, bond prices will reduce. And we know bond price and bond yields, they are inversely proportional. So bond yields in US started increasing. So please do understand that rate of interest and bond yields, they are always directly proportional, which means if there is increase in rate of interest, bond yields will also increase. So in US, bond yields started increasing, and because the bond yield started increasing in US, people who had invested their money in India, what they did, they start doing, they started selling of the bonds and started shifting it back, their investment back to US. So this led to large scale FPI outflows from the Indian economy. This is the first impact. Second, as there was large scale FPI outflow, this led to the rupee depreciation. I must have told you in the last class that rupee has got depreciated between April 2022 to December 2022 by almost 7% vis-a-vis dollar. Third is to counter the rupee depreciation, RBI had to inject dollars into the economy. These dollars were injected from where? From our forex reserves. So that is why there has been decline in our forex reserves. Once again, we discussed in the last class that the forex reserves was almost around $650 billion, and from 650 it got reduced to 560 ke aspas, right? And within India, what happened was, since more amount of FPIs were going out of India to US, there was lower demand for government securities in India. Lower demand for government securities means the bond prices in India started reducing. Lower bond prices led to increase in the bond yields within the Indian economy. And last and most importantly, as the rupee value depreciates, we know that rupee depreciation means that imports into India will become costly. So it led to what is referred to as imported inflation. So when in look at Indian economy, in the Indian economy, the average CPI rate of inflation, I'm saying average, that means average rate of inflation for the entire financial year, this was almost around 6.8%. And we know what should be the target for CPI rate of inflation, between 2 to 6%. So the rate of inflation had exceeded the target. So it was around 6.8%. And we know that under the inflation targeting framework, it has been mentioned that if RBI fails to maintain inflation within the target for 3 consecutive quarters. 3 consecutive quarters means in one quarter you have 3 months. So 3 consecutive quarters means 9 months. For 9 consecutive months, if RBI is unable to maintain the inflation within the targeted range, RBI is required to submit a report to the government. So RBI has submitted report to the government as to why it has failed to keep inflation under control and what steps will the RBI take to bring down the rate of inflation within the target. So this report has been published for the first time, and that is why it becomes important. So since there was increase in rate of inflation, the RBI in India started increasing the policy rates to control inflation. So here, this chapter, let me tell you, this chapter deals a lot with respect to various facts, figures, and all other things. But from the perspective of prelims, there are only some things that you need to understand. So what we will do is, we will focus only on those things which I think are important for the upcoming prelims examination. So here, I will briefly touch upon what were the broad policy decisions taken by the RBI to control the rising inflation within the Indian economy. And after that, we'll take up some questions which are likely to be asked as far as this entire scenario is concerned. I hope this part is clear, all of you, right? Okay, so let's start with what was the policy action by the RBI. So we all know that if the inflation in the Indian economy is increasing, there is a benchmark rate. That benchmark rate is called as repo rate. Repo rate was increased in the Indian economy. So we can concentrate on this particular diagram. In the month of April 2022, the green color line here shows the repo rate. And you can see the repo rate in around April 2022, it was around 4%. And now from 4% repo rate, the repo rate has been increased to 6.5%. So you can see the repo rate has increased by how many percent? 2.5%, which can also be called as 250 basis points. So repo rate has increased by 250 basis points because of rising inflation. That's the first thing. Second is, for the first time in April 2022, the Reserve Bank of India has introduced a new tool to suck out excess money, that is called as standing deposit facility. Since it's a new development which has taken place, this is something which UPSC could well target. They could ask you things related to standing deposit facility. So for those students who are not aware about what is standing deposit facility, I will discuss this. And for the students who already know about standing deposit facility, it will be a kind of revision. So let's quickly understand the concept of standing deposit facility. Before that, I just want you to take a moment and think about repo and reverse repo. I hope everyone is able to recall the concept of repo and reverse repo. Repo is used for what? Repo is used for injecting money into the economy. Reverse repo, on the other hand, is used by the RBI to suck out the excess money from the economy. So when I say SDF, SDF is similar to reverse repo, which means SDF is used by the RBI to suck out the excess money. And please remember, from the perspective of prelims, that SDF has been introduced based upon the recommendations of which committee? Any idea? Which committee recommended the introduction of SDF in India? Quickly. You can respond in the chat box. Good. It has been recommended by Urjit Patel Committee. And also, this SDF has been introduced through an amendment to the RBI Act 1934. Two things are important. Recommended by Urjit Patel, and second, introduced through an amendment to the RBI Act 1934. So let's understand how does it work. So to understand standing deposit facility, let's compare and contrast this SDF with reverse repo. So under reverse repo, as you can see, if banks have surplus money, that surplus money banks can deposit with the RBI. In return, the RBI will keep government security as a collateral with the bank, and later the RBI will repurchase the same government security. The rate at which RBI repurchases the government security itself is called as reverse repo. So in this case, it's like RBI is sucking out money from the banks. So RBI is saying, if you have surplus money, you keep that surplus money with me. I will give you government security as a collateral, and later I will repurchase that government security. SDF is similar to reverse repo, as you can see, but there is one fundamental difference. That difference is, in case of SDF, government securities are not kept as collateral. So here you can see bank is having surplus money. That surplus money the bank is depositing with the RBI, and then the RBI will repay that surplus money, that the money which the bank has deposited, along with the interest. This interest which the RBI is paying to the bank, this itself is called as standing deposit facility. So SDF is similar to reverse repo with one fundamental difference, that is, in reverse repo you have government securities which are kept by RBI with the banks as collateral, whereas in standing deposit facility you don't have the government security as collateral. Apart from that, there are some other differences you can see here. Both reverse repo and standing deposit facility are used to suck out excess liquidity. Reverse repo and standing deposit facility is applicable to both scheduled banks, including RRBs. Now this word is important, including RRBs. The reason why this is important is because until the year 21-22, RRBs, that is regional rural banks, were not given access to LAF window of the RBI. LAF window of the RBI means repo, reverse repo and so on, until the year 21-22. But in the year 21-22, for the first time, RRBs were given access to LAF window. That is why it becomes important. And you can see, reverse repo, RBI needs to keep government security as a collateral to suck out money. In this case, RBI does not have to keep any government security. The duration of reverse repo could be 1 day and up to 14 days. In some cases, it could be more than 14 days also. But SDF is always, I repeat, always it is for 1 day. That is overnight. Please remember this, overnight only. Reverse repo is available at the discretion of the RBI, which means if you have surplus money, let's say you are banks, you have surplus money, on your own, you cannot come and deposit the money with me. Let's say I'm the RBI. You have to wait for RBI's notification. Only then you can go and keep the surplus money with the RBI. So that is what I said. Only when RBI issues notification, the banks can keep surplus money with the RBI under reverse repo. But standing deposit facility, it is available every day. And more importantly, look at this word. It is available at the discretion of whom? At the banks themselves. If you are a bank, if you have surplus money, that surplus money on your own, without waiting for RBI's notification, you can go and keep the surplus money with the RBI under which window? SDF window. And you can see both reverse repo and standing deposit facility are under RBI Act 1934. So since it's a new tool that we have been introduced as part of monetary policy, it does become important. So I told you, first thing is repo rate was increased. Second was that we introduced standing deposit facility. And third is we have adopted a modified monetary policy corridor in the year 2022. That is why it becomes important. What is this modified monetary policy corridor? You can see this was a corridor which we had adopted during COVID-19. In this monetary policy corridor, we had three tools, that is MSF, repo and reverse repo. And here, if you see, the difference between upper limit and lower limit. Upper limit is what? 4.25. Lower limit is 3.35. The difference between these two was how much? 90 basis points. So this was a monetary policy corridor of a width of 90 basis points. And this corridor was also called as asymmetric. It was called as asymmetric because difference between repo and the upper limit MSF was 25 basis points, whereas difference between repo and the lower base, that is reverse repo, this was 65 basis points. So since the difference between repo and upper limit and the difference between repo and the lower limit was different, we call this as what? Asymmetric. Got this point? Now the new monetary policy corridor, you can see now we have three tools. These three tools are MSF, repo and SDF. The most important development which has taken place right now is this reverse repo has been replaced with what? SDF. It's the most important development which has taken place. Second development, now look at the width of the corridor. Width of the corridor, that is upper limit and lower limit. If you look at the width of the corridor is 50 basis points. How much was the width earlier? 90 basis points. Now it is 50 basis points. Third, look at the difference between repo and the upper limit. It was 25 basis points, and difference between repo and SDF is also 25 basis points. Earlier the difference was different, but now the difference is same. So what kind of corridor we call it as? Symmetric monetary policy corridor. So how does it work? It works in such a manner that MSF is always 25 basis points higher than repo, and SDF is always 25 basis points lower than repo. So we know MPC, Monetary Policy Committee, it will fix only what? Repo rate. As the repo rate changes, automatically MSF and SDF will get changed accordingly. Now for example, say after 2 months, we decide to increase the repo rate to 6.75. Automatically MSF will be 25 basis points higher. 25 basis points higher means 7%. SDF will be 25 basis points lesser, which means in this case 6.50. And look at the difference. Difference will always be maintained at how much? 50 basis points. So that is how this is going to work. I hope this part is clear. So for those of you who already knew about this, I helped you to revise what was already known to you. So what we will do is, with respect to these developments, I will take up some questions which might be asked in the UPSC prelims examination. And when you are responding to my answer, please respond directly to me, not to everyone. So in your chat settings, you have an option, respond to me or everyone. Please change the option to me, and that is the host, and only then you answer, so that other people also get time and let them also think before answering. I hope this part is clear. Okay. Please take a look at the practice question. With reference to Monetary Policy Committee, consider the following statements. Take your time. No need to hurry. Abhishek, check your answer. Abhyudaya, check your answer. Good Ankit. Good Ravindra. Good Aditi. Good Chandrakant. Bablu, check your answer. Aishwarya, check your answer. Okay. Fine. Just concentrate here. MPC has been empowered to fix all the policy rates under the RBI Act 1934. Now, this is something which most of the students do not know. MPC has been empowered to fix only the benchmark rate. The benchmark rate is repo rate. Other policy rates such as CRR, SLR and other rates, they are not, MPC is not empowered to fix it. So if MPC is not fixing it, who is fixing it? The RBI itself. So the first is incorrect. The decisions of MPC are not binding. It is actually binding. They are binding on the RBI. And we discuss inflation target is not met for 3 consecutive quarters. I told you 3 consecutive quarters means 9 months. So in UPSC prelims, they could either ask you in terms of quarters or in terms of months. Do not get confused, right? So this is correct. So right answer is 3 only. Let's take up the next question. Look at the question. I have just discussed the answer now. Good Ankit, good Abhilash, good Ravindra, good Divek, good Chandrakant, good Kamalpreet, good Shiva, good Nitesh, Saugandhika, Jyoti, Saurav, Akash, Asna, very good. Ajay, Gaurav, Manish, you need to check your answer. Srinath, you also. Good Aarti. Okay. SDF has been introduced through an amendment to the RBI Act based upon the recommendation of Bimal Jalal. It's not Bimal Jalal, it's actually Urjit Patel, like I said. Bimal Jalal Committee, let me tell you about this. This was a committee which gave recommendations with respect to RBI's economic capital framework. Economic capital framework basically deals with how much profits RBI should keep with itself and how much profits should the RBI transfer as dividend to the government. So first is incorrect. Under SDF, banks can park the surplus funds with the RBI, which is correct. But the second part of the statement says up to 14 days. Like I said, it's not 14 days, it is overnight. Unlike reverse repo, RBI does not need to provide for government security as a collateral, correct? SDF is higher than reverse repo. Now this is what is important. Right now, I told you that how much was reverse repo earlier during COVID-19? 3.35. And reverse repo even now continues to remain at 3.35 and SDF is around 6.25. So in a way, RBI is giving more amount of emphasis to the new tool which it has introduced, that is SDF. In a way, it is de-emphasizing the reverse repo. So that is why even the fourth statement in this case is correct. So right answer is 3 and 4 only. Okay. Look at the next practice question. Which among the following steps is the government or the RBI not likely to take to counter rupee depreciation? I told you how to solve such questions. Good, Shivangi. Tanishka, good. Chandrakant, good. Indrani, please check your answer. Good, Harsh. No, Harsh, you need to check your answer. Arjun, Nitesh, Shika, good. Ankit, check your answer. Okay, please pay attention. Let's solve this question. Which among the following steps is the government or the RBI not likely to take to counter the rupee depreciation? The question is actually simple, but I have made this simple question into difficult question by adding the word not, which UPSC normally does. So what I will do now is to solve this question. I will take out the word not. Not को हटा देते हैं. Let's solve this question as a normal question. And when you solve this question as a normal question, at the end, instead of finding out the correct options, need to find out the incorrect options. So here, to counter rupee depreciation, what should happen to the dollar supply in the economy? Dollar supply in the economy should increase. We need to attract more dollar into the economy, right? So keeping that in mind, let's look at the first option. Increase customs duty on non-essential goods. Non-essential goods, let's say gold. If I increase custom duty on gold, I can say here that import of gold into the Indian economy will reduce. If the import of gold into the economy reduces, it means that we are able to prevent the outflow of dollar, which is correct. Reduce the policy rate such as repo. Now imagine if we reduce the policy rate, that is repo, what is going to happen to rupee supply? Money supply. Rupee supply is going to increase. And rupee, just think of rupee as a commodity. Like if Apple supply increases, then what will happen to Apple prices? Apple prices will fall. So same way, if rupee supply increases, rupee value will reduce. So obviously, RBI will not reduce the repo rate. Increase the limit on external commercial borrowing. Now we know that India has not adopted capital account convertibility, which means every year RBI imposes an annual limit on external commercial borrowing. If we increase the limit on external commercial borrowing, what will happen to dollar inflow into India? Dollar inflow into India will increase. As the dollar inflow increases, dollar supply increases, we'll be able to counter the rupee depreciation. So which is correct. Last one says increase in government expenditure. Now think of this. If government is increasing its expenditure, what has happened to rupee supply? Rupee supply is going to increase. As the rupee supply increases, the rupee value will reduce. So this is something which will not be undertaken. So right answer in this case is, I told you need to find out the incorrect option because you have the word not. So in this case, the right answer is 2 and 4 only. Did you get the point? I can see most of you got the right answer, which is good. Let's look at the last question. And please keep your cameras on, all of you. Have a look at the question and think what do you think is the answer for this question. Good Muskan, good Santosh, good Chandrakant, good Shika, good Akshay, Ashwin, Shailaja, Tanishka, Dia. Okay, fine. Which among the following, once again, not the likely effects of synchronized rate hikes by global central banks on the Indian economy? So this is basically asking us about what do you mean by taper tantrum and what is its effect. I just now discussed the answer to this. So here the rupee value will depreciate. The yield rates on the government security will increase. But with respect to FPI, what will happen to FPI? Inflow or outflow? FPI will outflow. And here the word is not. So right answer is 1 only. Did you understand this point? Now what I think is, from the perspective of economic survey, whatever data which they have given with respect to how policy rates have changed in the financial year 22-23, what RBI has done, those things are not really important. If at all UPSC would ask you a question, the question will be much more conceptual in nature rather than based on facts and figures. That is why I'm focusing more upon the conceptual understanding of these things. Earlier, as you know, we used to have 2 volumes of economic survey, volume 1 and volume 2. Volume 1 was very important because it was very, very conceptual. But now UPSC has started coming, the government has been started coming out with only volume 2, and it is mainly based upon different facts and figures. Okay. Next one is this. Once again, this particular chapter talks about how different aggregates of money supply have changed in the financial year 22-23. So it basically talks about how reserve money, narrow money, broad money have got changed in the financial year 22-23. And in response to these changes in the aggregates of money supply, it also discusses as to how the money multiplier in the economy has got changed. Money multiplier. And you can see broadly the money multiplier, which is denoted in blue color. This money multiplier for Indian economy is somewhere around 5.2. This is what the economic survey basically talks about. But we know that UPSC is not going to ask you questions with respect to what is the present money multiplier, what is the value of reserve money, what is the value of narrow money in India. If at all you get a question, the questions will be very conceptual in nature. So what I will do, I'll quickly revise the concept of reserve, narrow money, broad money, money multiplier, and then we will take up at least 5 to 6 questions related to the aggregates of money supply. I hope this part is clear. Okay, so this will help you to have a much better grasp over the questions related to aggregates of money. Okay, look at this one, aggregate money supply. Now सबसे पहले, when I say aggregate money supply, here we are talking about the total stock of money supply in the economy. Total stock of money supply means at any given point of time, what is the total amount of money supply in the economy? That's the first thing that you need to understand. Second thing is, when I'm saying money, please do not think of money only as currency or coins. Money, when I say money, is not just in terms of currency or coins. Money would also means demand deposits. Demand deposits means your savings account, current account. It also means time deposits. So you need to have a holistic understanding of what is money. So money means not just currency notes, but also demand deposits as well as time deposits. So let's have a look at this. Where all will you find money? सबसे पहले, currency in circulation. It has two components. That is currency with the public and currency with the banks and currency with the public. Now, this is quite understandable. Currency with the public. This means basically the currency notes and coins that we have with us. That is currency with the public. What is currency with the banks? Let us discuss this because this is a little tricky. Now, let's say I, as an individual, I go and deposit 100 rupees with the ICICI bank. This 100 rupees which I deposit with the ICICI bank, please do understand, this 100 rupees is not the currency with the bank. This 100 rupee which I deposit with the ICICI bank, this will become either the demand deposit or the time deposits with the bank, depending upon where I am depositing the money. If I'm depositing 100 rupees in my savings account, it becomes demand deposit. If I deposit 100 rupees in my fixed deposit, it becomes time deposits. Then this, what does this mean? Currency with the banks then. Currency with the banks basically means on a day-to-day basis, banks usually maintain certain amount of cash with themselves. And this is not your deposits. Then what is this cash? For what purpose they are maintaining? They are maintaining this cash with themselves to run their business. What business? For example, you are a depositor. You want to withdraw money from a bank on that particular day. To help you to withdraw money, cash on that particular day, bank will always keep some amount of cash with itself. So that cash which the bank is keeping with itself to fulfill its obligations towards depositors. If depositors want to withdraw money, that cash, we call it as currency with the banks. It is not on CRR. Please understand. It is not on CRR. CRR comes here. It is simply the currency which the banks is maintaining on a day-to-day basis. Different banks will have different amount of currency depending upon their requirements. Balances with the RBI, CRR deposits and reverse repo deposits. Now we know that a bank can maintain has to maintain the CRR deposits with the RBI, and banks can also keep the surplus money with the RBI under reverse repo. That is the balances with the RBI. Next is balances with the banks, which is demand deposits and time deposits. Balances with the post offices is once again demand deposits and time deposits. Is this part clear? Did you understand the meaning of balances with the cash currency with the banks? Right? We'll come back to this. Don't worry. Now let's see M0. M0 is called as reserve money. Some cases M0 is also called as monetary base, or it is also called as high powered money. So please do understand that if UPSC does not ask you reserve money, but let's say it asks you monetary base or say high powered money, do not get confused. It is simply what? M0. Now when I say M0, if you want to remember what are the components of M0, you just have to think as to among these sources of money supply that we discussed, what money is a liability of the RBI. Liability of RBI क्या क्या है? This currency with the banks, currency with the public, it's a liability of RBI. Similarly, CRR deposits with the RBI is also RBI's liability. Reverse repo deposits is also RBI's liability. So you can see reserve money is currency in circulation, which includes currency with the banks and currency with the public, plus CRR deposits plus other deposits with the RBI. This is my reserve money. Narrow money, that is M1, is currency with the public. Now, one thing which is important is narrow money is not currency in circulation. What it is? Currency with the public. Currency with the public plus demand deposits with whom? With the banks. M2 is M1 plus post office demand deposits. M3, which is your broad money, this is not M2 plus something. Please focus here. This is M1 plus time deposits with the banks. And last is M4, which is your M3, that is broad money plus post offices deposits. So all of this is how we aggregate the money. Currency in circulation is a liability of RBI because RBI, when it issues a currency, RBI says, I promise to pay the bearer the value of the currency note. So that is why the currency in circulation is always a liability of the RBI. It's not an asset. Clear, Aishwarya? Okay. यहाँ तक clear है सबको? Okay. Let's quickly understand the concept of money multiplier then. Money multiplier. Now, with respect to money multiplier, I hope everyone knows two things. One thing is money multiplier is calculated as 1 by R into 100, which means money multiplier and reserve ratio, how are they rated to each other? They are inversely proportional. So, it's like saying if reserve ratio increases, money multiplier will reduce. If reserve ratio reduces, money multiplier will increase. Right? Similarly, money multiplier can also be calculated as M3 divided by M0. What is M3? M3 is the broad money. M0 is your reserve money. Right? So M3 divided by M0 is how we calculate the money multiplier. Now, for example, when I say M0, reserve money, I told you reserve money is currency in circulation plus CRR deposits with and other deposits with the RBI. In all, the reserve money is simply the amount of currency notes which RBI has printed and put into circulation. So this is somewhere around 30 lakh crore. Last year, April 2022, this was 30 lakh crore. This is my M0. But M3, if you see, M3 in this case means M1, that is this one, this part, plus time deposits with the banks. So this is somewhere around 160 lakh crore. So you can see M3 divided by M0, how much will it be? More than 5, right? So that is how you calculate the concept of money multiplier. Apart from this, there are other factors which affect the money multiplier. Let's look at this. I have discussed the reserve ratio, right? Let's look at the other things. One is currency deposit ratio. What is this currency deposit ratio? See, as the name suggests, currency deposit ratio means in the numerator you have currency, in the denominator you have deposit. So it basically tells us what proportion of money people are keeping with themselves in the form of cash and what proportion of money people are keeping in the form of deposit with the banks. Currency deposit ratio. Now, for example, let's say there is increase in the currency deposit ratio. This is a ratio. Agar increase ho raha hai, it means what has happened to numerator value? Numerator value has increased. What has happened to denominator? Denominator value has reduced. So if there is increase in currency deposit ratio, it means people are keeping more amount of money in the form of currency with themselves. Less amount of money they are depositing with the banks. If people are depositing less amount of money with the banks, can I say banks will have less amount of money to give loans? If they have less amount of money to give loans, what will happen to money multiplier? क्या होगा? It will reduce. So that is what it says. Currency with the public is higher, deposit the bank is lower, money multiplier will reduce. Increase in currency deposit ratio will reduce the money multiplier. Similarly, if there is decrease in currency deposit ratio, decrease means this is a ratio. Numerator value has reduced, denominator value has increased. So people are keeping less amount of currency in their pocket, more amount of money they're depositing with the bank. If they're depositing more amount of money with the bank will have more amount of money to give loans. So money multiplier in this case will increase. So you can see decrease in currency deposit ratio will lead to increase in money multiplier. So we know reserve ratio and money multiplier. How are they related to each other? Inversely proportional. Same way, in this case, currency deposit ratio and money multiplier, how are they related? Inversely proportional. Did you all get this point, all of you? Next things, credit creation. Higher the credit creation, higher the money multiplier. Banking habits of the people. We know banking habits of the people will improve the money multiplier. And look at this. Reverse repo deposits with the RBI. So let's say here banks are keeping more amount of reverse repo deposit with the RBI. It means banks will have less money to give loans. Money multiplier will reduce. If banks are keeping less amount of money in the form of reverse repo with the RBI, banks will have more amount of money to give loans. So money multiplier will increase. So once again, can I say reverse repo deposits with the RBI, how is it related to money multiplier? Inversely proportional. यहाँ तक clear है सबको? Okay, let's take up questions with respect to what I've discussed so far, conceptual questions. Take your time. No need to hurry. Good Shika. Good Likhit. Good Abhilash. Shailaja, need to check your answer. Kamalpreet, good. Ambika. Divek, good. Anirudh. Saugandhika, please check your answer. Dheeraj, check your answer. Chandrakant, check your answer. Aishwarya, check your answer. Okay. Srinath, you're not responding. What happened? Simpson. Okay. Let's see this. Increase in CRR is likely to increase the reserve money in India. Reserve money, how do you calculate reserve money? Currency in circulation plus CRR deposits plus other deposits with the RBI. So if there is increase in CRR, it means that banks are keeping more amount of money in the form of CRR. So automatically what will happen to reserve money? Reserve money is going to increase. Increase in CRR is likely to decrease the money multiplier. So I said 1 by R into 100 is how we calculate money multiplier. Money multiplier and reserve ratio, how are they rated? Inversely proportional. So if the CRR increases, money multiplier to kami hoga, right? So right answer in this case is both 1 and 2. Look at the next question. If you withdraw 1 lakh rupees in cash from your demand deposit account, which of the following measures of money supply likely to remain the same? Take your time. And I would want each one of you to respond. Good, Chandrakant. Harsh, check your answer. Jaya, check your answer. Diya, check your answer. Good, Surbhi. Okay, let's solve this question. It's a very easy question. You just have to know what is included in the M0, M1 and M3. So let's apply that logic. Reserve money, I said it is currency in circulation plus CRR plus other deposits with the RBI. So it says if you withdraw 1 lakh rupees in cash from your demand deposit account. So demand deposit account is not included in the reserve money. I'm withdrawing money. So if I withdraw money, what will happen to currency in circulation? Currency in circulation is going to increase. Increase by how much? Increase by 1 lakh. So my reserve money in this case is likely to increase. Did you all get the point here? Because simply my demand deposit is not accounted here. That's the reason. Let's look at M1. Narrow money is currency with public plus demand deposits. Now it says that I am withdrawing 1 lakh rupees in cash from my demand deposit, which means my demand deposit is reducing. Reducing how much? 1 lakh. But when I'm withdrawing this, what is happening to my currency with the public? Currency with the public is also increasing. एक तरफ डिक्रीज हो रहा है, दूसरा तरफ इंक्रीज हो रहा है. The demand deposit is reducing by 1 lakh, currency the public is increasing by 1 lakh. So what is the net effect? Net effect is going to remain the same. Got this point? It is going to remain same in this case. Broad money. Broad money is currency with public plus demand deposits plus time deposits. Now once again, I'm withdrawing 1 lakh rupees from my demand deposit account. So demand deposit is going to reduce by 1 lakh. Currency with the public is going to increase by 1 lakh. So what is going to happen to my broad money? Broad money is also going to remain the same. So look at the answer. Which of the following measures of money supply likely to remain same? Likely to remain same means the narrow money as well as broad money. Did you understand this point, all of you? Logic is very simple. You just have to know what is included in narrow money, broad money and reserve money. एक component अगर है वहां पे, तो just reduce that value of the component, and if there's a other substantial component, increase it. In case of narrow money and broad money, it is included. That is why it remains same. Are you clear with this? Okay. Let's take up almost a similar question. Let's see how many of you will get it right this time. ठीक है? Little complicated than what I've asked now. थोड़ा सा और complication बनाते हैं इसको. Look at this question. If you withdraw 1 lakh rupees from your demand deposit account and then deposit the same amount of money in fixed deposit. Take your time. Good Ravindra, good Piyush, good Amrita, good Abhyudaya, good Ambika, good Jyoti, good Chandrakant, Harsh, check your answer. Risha, check your answer. Aishwarya, check your answer. Shina, check your answer. Balaji, respond. Vijayani Sharma, Komal, Praveen, Santosh, Rahul. Good Harsh. Dipanshi, Indrani, stuck somewhere? Good Bhavika. Good Ritubaran. कमलप्रीत, चेक योर आंसर. चलो सॉल्व करते हैं इसको आसानी से, ठीक है. लेट्स सॉल्व दिस. आई वंस अगेन डिस्कस इन डिटेल सो दैट इन यूपीएससी प्रीलिम्स यू विल नॉट गेट कंफ्यूज एट ऑल, ठीक है. वंस अगेन लेट्स स्टार्ट विथ M0. M0 is my reserve money. Reserve money, I said currency in circulation plus CRR deposits plus other deposits. M1, which is my narrow money, is currency with public plus demand deposits. M3, that is my broad money, is currency with public plus demand deposits plus time deposits. Okay, let's focus here. I am withdrawing 1 lakh rupees from my demand deposit account and then deposit the same amount of money in my FD, fixed deposit. So I can see here, as far as M0, the reserve money is concerned, my reserve money is not going to get affected because the currency in circulation is not going to increase. It is going to remain the same. I have withdrawn money and the same money I am going to deposit where? In my fixed deposit. So this is not going to change at all because nowhere am I including demand deposit or fixed deposit. So this is likely to remain same. M0, M1. So you can see here. So let's look at M3. M3 is currency with the public plus demand deposits plus time deposits. So it says withdraw 1 lakh rupees from the demand deposit. So demand deposit reduces by 1 lakh. And then deposit the same amount of money in fixed deposit. So time deposit increases by 1 lakh. So this is increase, this is decrease. So what is the net effect on broad money? Broad money is going to remain the same. On the other hand, when I say M1, which is narrow money, this is going to reduce by 1 lakh. But I have withdrawn this money not in form of cash. After withdrawing money, where I am putting this? I am putting in the form of time deposit. So what is going to happen to my narrow money? Narrow money is going to reduce. So have a look at the options. Reserve money decreases. Reserve money is not going to get changed. Broad money increases. Broad money is going to remain the same. Both narrow money and broad money will remain same. Narrow money is not going to remain same. So what's the answer? Answer is narrow money is going to decrease. Here, when I'm saying demand deposits and time deposits, I am taking into account only the deposits with the banks. I am not taking into account deposit with the post offices. Clear, Santosh? So we will never take, like normally we don't take into account M2 and M4. M2 and M4 are redundant mostly. We are focusing on M1 and M3. Other deposits are included, but they are very minuscule, so we'll just ignore this. So if you look at the NCRT, in NCRT, this is a formula which is they haven't given. So just remember the formula which I have told you. If you remember this much, that's more than sufficient. So aapko kya bas, you have to remember M1, currency with the public plus demand deposits. M3, M1 plus time deposits. I guess this is very easy. ज्योग्राफी में आपके रिवर्स, ट्रिब्यूटरीज, माउंटेन पासेस सब कुछ याद रखते हो. पॉलिटी में सारे आर्टिकल्स ऑफ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन याद रखते हो. इकोनॉमी में आप इतना भी याद रख नहीं सकते, राइट? आई होप यू विल बी एबल टू रिमेंबर दिस मच एटलीस्ट, राइट? Okay, let's see how many of you will get right this question. Which among the following is likely to reduce money multiplier? Divek, Akshay, good. Just remember what I told you with respect to money multiplier. Money multiplier can be seen in two ways, one by R and another way is M3 by M0. M3 is broad money. Okay. Money multiplier is 1 by R, or money multiplier is M3 divided by M0. M3 is broad money, right? So it says decrease in broad money. So if broad money decreases, this is the numerator. If the numerator value decreases, what happens to money multiplier? Decrease hoga na, right? So money multiplier will reduce. So that's what it says, decrease in broad money. Higher currency deposit ratio, I told you currency deposit ratio is inversely proportional. CDR is inversely proportional to money multiplier. So this will also decrease the money multiplier. Increase in reverse repo deposits. I told you if banks are keeping more amount of money in the form of reverse repo, banks will have less amount of money to give loans. Money multiplier is likely to reduce. So right answer is 1, 2 and 3. Clear, Surbi? Why answer is D, right? यहाँ तक clear है सबको? So this is the kind of questions which you can expect. So the idea of taking up such questions is, in the earlier prelims there was a question similar to this about if you withdraw money, what is the likely impact on the money supply, aggregate money supply. So if you get a question aggregate money supply, please solve the question as M3. Aggregate money supply is always M3, that is your broad money. So some things which I want to make it clear. If a question is asked with respect to reserve money, so just consider reserve money as high powered money or say the monetary base. Aggregate money supply means always broad money, that is M3. Are we clear with this? Okay. Now with respect to this, banks credit. When banks give loan, the loan given by the banks can be broadly categorized into food credit and the non-food credit. When I say food credit, it's a loan which is given by the banks to FCI, that is Food Corporation of India, and other agencies for procurement of food grains. So in some cases, the FCI will take loans from a bank for procurement of food grains. How much loans the FCI or other agencies involved in procurement of food grains take from the banks, that we call it as food credit. Everything else, I repeat, everything else, including the loans which the banks give to agriculture, is called as what? Non-food credit. So you can see loans provided for various purposes, including what? Agriculture, is called as non-food credit. So food credit means only one thing: loan which the bank is given to FCI for procurement of food grains. Are we clear? Okay. Practice MCQ number 31. Quickly. Very easy question. The question which I took so far, they were little difficult, but this is very straightforward question. Which among the following are included in the category of food credit by the RBI? Food credit, I told you, it's a loans to the FCI for procurement of food grains. Only this we call it as food credit. Okay. If you have to guess the answer to this question, what would you guess? What does MICA, sometimes seen in news, deals with? Okay, let me discuss this. MICA is a market for crypto assets. This market for crypto assets, it's a EU's new law to regulate the crypto assets. Now, as far as the economic survey is concerned, the economic survey has discussed the different models which countries across the world have adopted to regulate the cryptocurrencies. It has also made mention about MiCA, which is a new law made by EU to regulate the cryptocurrencies. And I don't think that UPSC will get into the nitty-gritties of what is this law, whom all it is applicable, how does it work. Basically, you will get a one-liner question. One-liner question like the way I told you. What does MiCA, sometimes seen in news, deals with? It is basically dealing with regulation of crypto assets. So for your understanding, you should know that European Union has come up with a law to regulate cryptocurrencies. This law is applicable to all the issuers of cryptocurrencies. It is applicable to all the crypto exchanges, and it is also applicable to all the service providers. With respect to issuers, it is applicable to all the crypto assets, but it is right now not applicable to NFT. I hope you know NFT. NFT is non-fungible token. Right now, it is not applicable. So, under this EU's law, anyone who is issuing a crypto asset, before issuing a crypto asset, they are required to take prior approval from the concerned government. Without taking approval, you cannot issue a crypto asset. But problem is there are certain crypto assets for which there is no issuing authority, like Bitcoin. So for those crypto assets where there is no issuing authority as such, the European Union's law says that the crypto exchanges would have to come up with a white paper. In this white paper, they have to clearly communicate to the investors as to what are the potential risk of investing in crypto assets like Bitcoins. Bitcoin, it is decentralized issuance. So if there is a crypto exchange, that crypto exchange should come up with a white paper explaining what are the potential risk of investing in Bitcoin. So as far as prelims examination is concerned, one liner is more than sufficient. That MiCA is a law for regulating crypto assets. Please remember this. Okay. Okay. Now coming to the next part. Next part is with respect to, there are some people who are asking questions. I'll come back to your doubt. Vanchuk, I'll come back to your doubt at the end of the session. Do not worry. So coming to insurance and pension sector. Now you can see with respect to insurance and pension sector, repeatedly questions have been asked. Like in 2017, there was a question with respect to NPS, National Pension System. Prelims 2016, a question on Atal Pension Yojana. 2016, a question on Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. And you can see in the same year, in mains, the same topic was repeated, that is Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. So what I will do is, I'll briefly touch upon insurance and pension sector. And I'll also take a discussion of some important schemes of the government with respect to insurance and pension. Subsequent to which, we'll solve certain practice questions. Not just that, we'll also solve these questions also, the previous year questions. Okay? So let's start. Let's start with the insurance sector. Now, I hope you must be knowing the insurance sector. Insurance sector can be broadly categorized into life insurance and non-life insurance. Life insurance is about insurance upon death. Non-life insurance could be insurance for any other purpose, like vehicle insurance is a non-life insurance. And we know that if you want to take an insurance, what you have to pay? You have to pay a premium for the insurance, right? Like health insurance ke liye premium devna padega. For life insurance, you need to pay a premium, right? Now, with respect to insurance sector, there are two concepts which you should understand. One is the concept of insurance penetration, and the other one is insurance density. Now, these two are little similar, but there is a minute difference between insurance penetration and insurance density. Let's see this. You can see insurance penetration. How to define insurance penetration? It is defined as a ratio of total insurance paid to the GDP in a year. So this is always expressed in terms of percentage. Now, for example, let's say in a year, we have paid 3 rupees as premium. Let's say for life insurance, we have paid 3 rupees as a premium. And let's say the entire GDP is equal to 100 for that particular year. So what will be my insurance penetration? Insurance penetration will be equal to how much? 3%. So insurance penetration is insurance premium paid divided by what? GDP. Insurance density, on the other hand, is insurance premium paid to what? Population in a year. So one major difference is, yahan pe in numerator the value is same, but in denominator, in the first case the denominator value is GDP. In this case the denominator value is what? Population. And this insurance density is always measured in terms of what? Not percentage. It is measured in terms of USD, US dollar. So it's like saying what is the per capita insurance payment. So how much insurance we all have paid divided by population will tells us individually on an average what is the per capita insurance premium that you have paid. That tells us the insurance density. Now for example, you can see here, this is for life insurance and non-life insurance. So you can see for non-life insurance, this one, it is on the right hand side, this. So you can see non-life insurance is equal to how much? 1% of our GDP. Whereas life insurance is equal to how much? 3% of GDP. Which means for respect to life insurance, how much money we have paid in 1 year? 3. Divided by GDP, let's say is equal to 300. So it becomes insurance penetration. Insurance density, as you can see, it is always measured in terms of USD. Total insurance premium paid divided by population. Did you understand this point? Okay. So how will you remember this? To remember this, just imagine one thing. In the field of geography, you must have heard about population density, right? So in population density, just remember the word population. Similarly, when I say insurance density, immediately the thought which will come to your mind is population. That is how you will remember this. Yaad hai? Yaad rahega? Do not get confused. Okay. Look at some of the insurance schemes. So let's quickly look into these insurance schemes one by one. One is Pradhan Mantri Suraksha Bhima Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Jyoti Bhima Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Vayu Vandana Yojana, and Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. These are some of the schemes which we are implementing. So in the next 5 minutes, let's quickly look into these schemes and then we'll take up certain practice questions. Okay, let's look at this. Pradhan Mantri Suraksha Bima Yojana and Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana. So let's understand. Both of these schemes are insurance schemes. Both are insurance schemes. But the purpose of insurance is different in these two cases. What is the difference in terms of purpose? Pradhan Mantri Suraksha Bhima Yojana is an insurance scheme for what? Accident. If because of accident, if a person dies or if he suffers some disability, disability means a person might lose his hand, leg, eyesight because of accident, then he will get a insurance under Suraksha Bhima Yojana, protection. And this is Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana. This is what? Life insurance, which means upon the death of a person. And when I say death of a person, death can take place because of any reason. Death can take place because of old age also. Death can take place because of accident also. Death of a person because of any reason, he will get the benefit under Jeevan Jyoti Bhima Yojana. So to make this distinction clear, focus on this. What does it say? Jeevan. What is Jeevan in English? Life. It's a life insurance scheme. यहाँ पे क्या है? Suraksha. Suraksha means protection. Protection from what? Protection from accident. Hope you'll be able to remember these two things, right? Okay. To join these two schemes, people need either a bank account or a post office account. The age to join the Pradhan Mantri Suraksha Bima Yojana is 18 to 70. Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana is 18 to 50. Factual thing. Now, when you have to avail insurance under this scheme, you have to pay an annual amount of rupees 12. Annual premium is just rupees 12. And this annual premium is auto debited from the bank account or the post office account depending upon the case to case basis. But for Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana, you can see the annual premium that you require to pay is 330. Upon the accidental death or full disability of a person will get 2 lakh and he'll get 1 lakh for partial disability. But in this case, he'll get 2 lakh in case of death because of any reason, including death of a person. because of accident. For example, let's say if there's a person enrolled under both these two schemes and he dies because of accident, he'll get benefit under this scheme also and he'll get benefit under this scheme also. Insurance period is from 1st June to 31st May in both the cases. Actually, the financial year starts from 1st of April to 31st of March, but the insurance coverage is always from 1st June to 31st May, which means this insurance amount which gets auto debited, it always auto debits on the 1st of June. And you can see who is implementing them: Ministry of Finance. Look at this practice question. Neither one nor two. I just interchanged the second aspect. Insurance penetration is measured as insurance premium to GDP. Insurance density is measured as insurance premium to the population. That is why it is incorrect. So answer is neither one nor two. Look at this. Good. This is incorrect. So you can see Pradhan Mantri Suraksha Bima Yojana, it is 18 to 70 years. Here I mentioned 18 to 40 years. So there are certain factual things which you'll have to remember. Okay. Next is Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. Let's quickly look into this scheme. I hope all of you have studied about Ayushman Bharat scheme. Ayushman Bharat scheme has two components. Component number one is to upgrade 1.5 lakh primary healthcare centers into health and wellness centers. And second component about Ayushman Bharat is Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. This scheme provides for a health insurance coverage of up to rupees 5 lakh per family per year. Health insurance coverage is provided. And the reason as to why we introduced this scheme was when we carried out NSSO 71st round survey, we found out that 86% of people in rural India and 82% of people in urban India did not have access to health insurance. Because of which, when someone in the family fell ill, if they had to be hospitalized, because the families did not had access to health insurance, the amount of money which they had to spend from their pocket was very high. So out of pocket expenditure in the year 2015 was as high as 70%. So to reduce the out of pocket expenditure and to improve the health insurance coverage, we have launched this particular program. And one important thing you should know is Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana is not just applicable to BPL families. It is applicable to certain identified families. And how are these families identified? They are identified based upon socio-economic caste census. So certain families are identified based upon deprivation in terms of education, health, housing, and based upon occupational criteria. Do I need to know this criteria? No, you don't have to know the criteria. What you have to know that the families are identified based upon socio-economic caste census. Here, with respect to Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, all the eligible families who are covered under this particular scheme, if someone in their family falls ill, they can get the treatment either from public hospitals, that is government hospitals, or certain selected private hospitals. Those selected private hospitals are called as empaneled private hospitals. And they don't have to pay any money for treatment of up to how much? Up to rupees 5 lakh. The money will be paid by whom? By the government on behalf of the family. So that is why it is called as what? Cashless service. And this is applicable across India. So let's say I'm in Delhi and I'm covered under this particular scheme. I can get treatment not just in Delhi but across India in any of the public hospitals or any selected private institutions. There is no restriction on family size. So irrespective whether a family has 2 members, 10 members, all the members in this family will be covered under this particular scheme. And you can see it's a centrally sponsored scheme. I hope you know what is centrally sponsored scheme. A contribution is coming from both center as well as states. And there are some states which are actually not implementing this Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. It is, for example, some states such as West Bengal, they're not implementing it. And it is implemented by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Okay, let's look at Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. Now, this is another scheme which is important. It has already been asked in prelims 2016. So, let's look into this Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. Now, we know how risky it is for the farmer to cultivate agricultural crops. So, to provide insurance to the farmers, what we have come up with is Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. It is a crop insurance program for the farmers to compensate for their losses. Who all are covered? And interestingly, it covers not just land owning farmers, it also covers sharecroppers as well as tenant farmers. Now, this is something which is tricky. I'm pretty sure if there is a statement in UPSC prelims that Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana covers tenant farmers and sharecroppers, most of you would mark it as incorrect. Because most of the time, sharecroppers and tenant farmers are not covered under government schemes and programs. For example, PM Kisan, I hope you must have heard of this, under which we are providing for a cash transfer of rupees 6,000. This scheme is only for whom? Land owning farmers. This PM Kisan is not for sharecroppers and tenant farmers. But Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana is covering all of these farmers. We'll come back to this, Ankit, don't worry. Okay? What are the risks covered under this particular scheme? Prevented sowing. Now, what is prevented sowing? Now, there could be delay in monsoons. Because of delay in monsoon, farmers may not be able to cultivate the crops. So, even then the farmers will get the benefit of this insurance. So, this is very important. So, it's not that only you have grown crop and then you incurred a loss. Even before growing crop, if you are unable to grow crop also, you'll get an insurance. Yield losses because of natural calamities. Natural calamities could be like heat wave, which we face this year, or it could be with respect to droughts, floods, cloudburst, diseases, or pest attacks. And interestingly, the state governments have been given the flexibility to add loss due to attack of wild animals also. Now, you know, some states, there is substantial amount of crop loss because of attack by wild elephants. So, in that case also the farmers will get the benefit. But here, it's a flexibility which has been given to the state government. What is not covered? Loss due to war, loss due to nuclear attacks is not covered. It has been mentioned in the guidelines of the scheme itself. And look at this payment of insurance premium. Now, please focus here. This is the most complicated part of Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. So, let's get into this payment of insurance. Let's say I want to take a health insurance. To take a health insurance, I am required to pay a premium. Similarly here, when farmers are being compensated for the loss, it's an insurance. It's not that farmers are getting this insurance free of cost. Farmers also would have to pay a certain insurance premium. So, you can see farmers, depending upon the kind of crops which they are growing, the insurance premium varies. Like Kharif, it is 2%. For Rabi, it is 1.5%. For horticulture, it is 5%. And look at this part. Remaining balance premium is shared equally between center and states. Whatever the balance is paid by center and states. Now, this is little complicated. So, to make this understanding more easier, I have incorporated an example. Let's understand this concept of insurance premium by an example. Let's say I'm a farmer and I want to grow rice, which is basically a Kharif crop. For Kharif crop, how much is the insurance premium? 2%, right? Now, let's say I need to get a insurance cover of rupees 1 lakh. It means if I incur a loss in this rice, the maximum amount of money which I'll get is 1 lakh. And let's say for this 1 lakh insurance cover, the insurance premium is equal to 24%. Now, this insurance premium of 24% is not something which is fixed by the government. It is something which is discovered through market mechanism. For example, depending upon the area in which I'm growing rice, the risk will vary. For example, if I'm growing rice in, say, irrigated area, the risk is lower. Since the risk is lower, the premium amount will also be lower. If I'm growing rice in an unirrigated area, the risk is higher, the premium amount will also be higher. So this varies. It is not same. So I've taken an example where insurance premium is equal to 24%. So to get an insurance cover of 1 lakh, how much is the insurance premium that I have to pay? 24,000. And I told you what is the share of farmers? 2%. So farmer will pay 2%. So 2% of insurance cover 1 lakh. How much is this? 2,000. How much is the remaining amount? Out of 24,000, 2,000 has been paid by the farmer. So bacha kitna? 22,000. And what did I say? Remaining balance will be shared equally between center and state. So out of this 22,000, half, that is 11,000, will be paid by center and 11,000 will be paid by states. So that is what I said. Both center and state would contribute 11,000 rupees each. That is how we payment of insurance premium takes place. Here I have discussed this from the perspective of Kharif crop. You can apply the same logic for Rabi crop or say horticulture crops. Do you understand the concept of how it works? Okay, let's look at this question. Please read the question carefully. Kamalpreet, got to know where you went wrong? These are kind of mistakes which you might commit even in the prelims examination. So you need to be very careful, extra cautious. So it does not cover only BPL families. It is centrally sponsored scheme implemented by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. This is correct. And I was incorrect. And I can see most of you are giving me the answer as 2 only. C. It is not C. It is actually 1 and 3 only. Droughts and floods are covered. Crop loss due to attack by wild animals is covered. Losses arising out of war and nuclear attack is not covered. So right answer is 1 and 2 only. Okay. Now coming to the pension sector. With respect to pension sector, there are some important pension schemes implemented by the government like Atal Pension Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Shram Yogi Mandan. Now, this is a new scheme which the government has started implementing. That is why it is important. Then you must have heard about NSAP, which stands for National Social Assistance Program. So here, National Old Age Pension Scheme, National Disability Pension Scheme, and National Widow Pension Scheme. And then we have National Pension Scheme, which is quite important. This is something which I will discuss as part of this discussion. Let's start with Atal Pension Yojana and Pradhan Mantri Shram Yogi Mandan. Let's start with this. Okay, please focus here. Both these schemes are pension schemes. Pension schemes means they provide pension after the age of retirement upon attaining the age of 60. But the schemes are different in terms of their coverage. They are different in terms of who is implementing them. That is implementation ministry. They are different in terms of contribution. So let's understand them one by one. Pradhan Mantri Shram Yogi Mandan introduced recently in 2019. This was introduced way back in the year 2015-16. Both provide for old age protection and social security. But there is difference in terms of coverage. What is that? Pradhan Mantri Shram Yogi Mandan is applicable only for unorganized workers. Only for unorganized workers. And that to be the monthly income of unorganized workers should be how much? Less than 15,000 only. Atal Pension Yojana is targeted at unorganized worker. What's the meaning of targeted? When I say targeted, it means that our focus is on providing pension for unorganized worker, but any Indian citizen can also join Atal Pension Yojana. I can also join Atal Pension Yojana. We can also join Atal Pension Yojana also. So did you understand the basic difference between the two? Shram Yogi Mandan is only for unorganized worker. That to be their income should be less than 15,000. Anyone can join Atal Pension Yojana, but the target group is unorganized worker. Look at this age group 18 to 40. Here also it is 18 to 40. That is both same. Here the contribution is 50 to 50 by the subscriber as well as central government. Let me give an example. Let's say I am of age of 18. At the age of 18, I am joining this particular scheme. So government has said when you join at the age of 18, how much will be your contribution? And that initial contribution at the age of 18 could be how much? 55. So I, individual, will provide for 55 rupees per month. Government will also provide for 55 rupees contribution, 50-50. Both of this becomes a corpus in a single month. This is for an individual who is joining the scheme at the age of 18. Depending upon the age at which a person enters this particular scheme, the contribution will change. For example, if a person is joining the scheme at the age of 40, how much will be his contribution? 200. So person will contribute 200, government will also contribute 200. Now, as far as your prelims examination is concerned, you are not required to know what is the contribution for different age group. You must know that the contribution will vary from how much? 55 rupees to 200, depending upon the entry of age. But Atal Pension Yojana, here you must see that government will contribute its 50%. But here for contributing this 50%, there is a criteria condition available only for a period of 5 years. That is, initially this Atal Pension Yojana was launched in the year 2015-16. So for initially for between 2015-16 to 2019-20 only it is applicable, not beyond that. So right now the government is not even contributing money. So this Atal Pension Yojana, can I say, who is providing for entire contribution? Entire contribution is right now done only by whom? Individual. यहाँ पे कैसा है? 50-50 है, and यहाँ पे कैसा है? Only the individual contribution. Pradhan Mantri Sham Yogi Mandan, you are guaranteed a minimum pension of rupees 3,000 per month. There, the pension amount will range from rupees 1,000 to 5,000 per month. Interestingly, in case of Atal Pension Yojana, same amount of pension will be guaranteed to the spouse upon the death of the individual. If a husband dies, the wife will get the same amount of pension. If the wife dies who was enrolled under the scheme, the husband will get same amount of pension. But in Pradhan Mantri Sham Yogi Mandan, 50% of the pension, not the entire amount. And look at the last part. Sham Yogi Mandan, please remember, it is Ministry of Labor and Employment. This is Ministry of Finance. Look at practice question number 37. Good. Answer is 193. Unorganized workers only. Yes. It provides for minimum assured pension of rupees 3,000. The entire contribution is not done by the government. It is 50-50. So right answer is 193. This was the question asked in prelims 2016. Okay, it says it's a minimum guaranteed pension scheme mainly targeted at unorganized sector workers. Mainly targeted. Targeted हमने बोला था. Yes, it is correct. But if the question, if the statement was only, then it have been incorrect. Only one member of family can join? No, there is no such restriction. How many members they want can join. Same amount of pension is guaranteed to the spouse for life after subscriber death. Yes. Answer is 1 and 3 only. Are we clear with this, all of you? Okay. Now coming to last part. Last part is about NPS versus OPS. Now this is one biggest news which is frequently coming in the newspaper. National new pension scheme versus old pension scheme. So let's understand ki what is the controversy and what are the features of NPS, how are they different from OPS and so on. Prior to the year 2004, we used to implement a pension scheme for the government officials. It was now, at that time it was called as pension scheme, but now we call it as old pension scheme. Post 2004, we introduced new pension scheme, NPS. Now with respect to old pension scheme for the government officials or government employees, this old pension scheme was based upon a model which was called as defined benefit. Defined benefit in this case means upon the age of retirement, a government employee was entitled to get 50% of his salary as a pension. For example, under the old pension scheme, let's say when I retired at the age of 60, my monthly income was equal to 1 lakh rupees. So I would get how much? Half of my monthly income, that is rupees 50,000 as the pension. Let's say you retired, and when you retired, you used to get a monthly income of rupees 50,000. So you'll get a pension 50% of 50,000, that is 25,000 per month. That was called as defined benefit. But under new pension scheme, there is no defined benefit, which means there is no guarantee as to how much will be your pension amount. And now this has created a controversy. The reason is there are some state governments in India which have now moved back to old pension scheme. So some of the states which have moved back to old pension scheme include states such as Punjab, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand. These states, they have moved back to old pension scheme. So in UPSC prelims, you might well get a question about the new pension scheme. That is one thing. Or you might get a question with respect to what is the difference between new pension scheme and the old pension scheme. So let's get into these discussion. Okay. So you can see old pension scheme. What is this old pension scheme? In this old pension scheme, the entire contribution to the pension was done only by the government. So if government used to contribute and government employee was not making any contribution at all. And this under old pension scheme, we used to have defined benefit. Like I said, defined benefit means employee was entitled to get 50% of the last drawn salary as pension. That is why it is called as what? Defined benefit. How much benefit you are going to get upon the age of retirement? It was well defined. That is why it is called as defined benefit. What about NPS then? New pension scheme. In new pension scheme, what we have is there is no defined benefit, but what we have is defined contribution. What is this defined contribution? As you can see, with respect to defined contribution, what we have defined is how much will be the contribution by the employee, how much will be the contribution by the government. Can you see the difference? Earlier, a government employee, was he contributing to his own pension? He was not contributing to his own pension. Now, an employee will be required to contribute to his pension. Can I say the government burden under NPS has got reduced? Government का burden यहाँ पे कम हो गया है. but earlier government used to have a higher burden. So we shifted from OPS to NPS because we wanted to reduce the burden on the government. Now we know that revenue expenditure of the government is very high, and salaries and pensions is part of your RE. So to reduce on that pension outgo by the government shifted from OPS to NPS. How much is the contribution? Both the employee as well as the government will contribute up to 14% of the salary and dearness allowance every month. So that is the contribution. So whatever corpus that we get from this contribution, this corpus, surprisingly, it is then invested in different financial instruments. So we have separate entities, pension fund companies who will manage this corpus. Those pension fund companies will in turn invest this corpus in shares, bonds, debentures, and so on. And when you make investment in shares, bonds, debentures for a long period, say 20 years, 30 years, automatically you'll get a much higher value. But is there a guarantee that you'll get a higher value? It might so happen that the market may collapse also. And look at this. Earlier, the amount of benefit which the government employee was to get, it was defined. But now, how much benefit you are going to get, how much pension you are going to get, it is not well defined. And you can see that right now, upon the age of retirement of a government employee, 60% of what is this corpus plus in profit, he'll get it as a lump sum. But the remaining 40% funds, he will not get it right now. The remaining 40% funds will be once again invested in pension funds, and this pension plan will provide for a monthly pension. Monthly he'll start getting some amount of money. Only 60% he'll get as a lump sum. And if he dies, he'll get the entire wealth. And there is a case where a person can exit before retirement also. But this is exceptional circumstances, not allowed under normal circumstances. If he is exiting before the age of retirement, 20% funds he'll get as a lump sum, ek saath. Remaining 80% of the funds has to be invested in pension plan, and it will provide for a monthly pension. So do you basically understand the difference between NPS and OPS? So just remember, OPS was, there was no defined contribution, but what it had defined benefit. NPS, defined contribution, but no defined benefit. Got this point? Some premise pointers I have incorporated here. Like what I discussed now, it is from the perspective of government officials, government employees. But the new pension scheme, we have said that any Indian citizen, and what is important is both resident Indian citizens as well as non-resident Indian citizens can join NPS. Whatever I discuss is for government officials, but I and you can also join NPS. Age group 18 to 70, earlier it was 65, we have increased it to 70 years. So the other things are same. Look at this practice question. Answer is neither one nor two. If I have to guess the answer, what would you guess? Do you think it is mandatory for the states to join NPS? We saw just now that the states have opted out of NPS, right? So that logic you have to apply. That is not mandatory. So this is incorrect. There is no provision for premature exit. There is a provision for premature exit, but that is allowed only in certain exception circumstances. So right answer is one only. Are we clear? Okay, fine. So we have discussed in detail about insurance and pension sector. I've discussed some important schemes and programs which have been mentioned in the economic survey and which could be asked, right? So let's move to the next chapter now. The next chapter is inflation, prices and inflation. And let's see the previous year prelims question with respect to inflation. You can see One was with respect to demand pull inflation, and the other one was with respect to WPI and CPI. Now, with respect to inflation, you can see here, this is the chart from the economic survey. It has highlighted that in the advanced economies, in the year 22-23, the rate of inflation had increased to 7.2%. And like I said, it is highest since 1982, highest since last 40 years. And we also discussed that in response to the rising global inflation, what all actions the RBI took. Now, when you look at this chapter is filled with a lot of facts, figures with respect to what was the CPI rate of inflation last 2 to 3 years, what was the WPI rate of inflation last 2 to 3 years, whether WPI and CPI have they converged or diverged, all those things, which I don't think that UPSC will ask you. So what I will do is in next 3 to 4 minutes, I will give you a basic idea as to why did the inflation in India increase, what was the response of the government and the RBI, and then we'll take up 5 to 6 questions related to the inflation. Okay? So let's start here. So inflation in India, if you see, broadly inflation in India, like I said, on an average, it was around 6.8% in the year 22-23. What are the reason for the higher inflation? We discussed the reason for the higher inflation was that there was higher inflation in advanced economies, which was like 7.2%, and this in turn led to what is called as imported inflation, right? This is what we discussed. Second, Russia-Ukraine war led to increase in food, fuel and fertilizer prices. So we know that we are dependent upon 60% of our edible oil requirements. We import 60% of our edible oil. Basically, we import oil such as sunflower oil and so on. And when you look at particularly sunflower oil, we are importing from where? Ukraine, right? Similarly, fertilizer also we are importing. So when Russia-Ukraine war took place, the prices of these commodities increased, leading to imported inflation. And as far as domestic factors are concerned, with respect to domestic factors, it is being said inflation took place because of supply side shock. What are the supply side shock? Supply side shock one was excessive heat wave. आपने सुना होगा, this time we had excessive heat wave, which in turn led to the decrease in yield of wheat. That is reason number one. Second reason is monsoon got delayed in the year 22-23. This delayed monsoons in turn led to the decrease in yield of rice. So overall area under Kharif rice got reduced. And third and most importantly, the food inflation, particularly in terms of tomatoes, on the higher side. Tomato का inflation इसलिए ज़्यादा था because of the unseasonal rainfall, particularly in the states which are known for growing of tomato, like Karnataka, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh. Their unseasonal rain led to supply side shock, leading to inflation. So broadly, we know that there are two factors of inflation: demand pull and cost push. So as far as Indian economy is concerned, the inflation that we faced was not demand pull. Predominantly what it was? Cost push. Supply side inflation. So in response to rising inflation, RBI increased the repo rate. We discussed repo rate was 4%. From 4% it was increased to 6.50. RBI also controlled the rupee depreciation, because we know if rupee value depreciates, imports into India will become costly. So RBI took steps to control the rupee depreciation. And look at the government. Government prohibited export of wheat. So by prohibiting export of wheat, we ensure that there is more domestic supply of wheat. So as the supply of wheat in India increased, the prices of wheat reduced. We also imposed export duty on rice. Normally we don't impose duty tax on our exports. But if you want to discourage export of certain commodity to reduce inflation, what we will do? We will impose export duty. So by imposing export duty, we discouraged exports. of rice. Lastly, we created adequate buffer stock of pulses. So if you look into this chapter, this entire chapter is saying the same thing again and again in 25 to 30 pages. So what I've done is I just summarize what is this chapter talking about. Itna agar aap jaan lete ho, that's more than sufficient. Now let's get into what actually can be asked in UPSC prelims, that is inflation. Okay? Look at the question. Which among the following can lead to cost push inflation in the Indian economy? It is similar to the question asked in prelims 2021, there the question was what factors lead to demand pull inflation. Here I've asked about cost push inflation. Good. Good Chandrakant, good Bhavika, good Abhilash. Sudhanshu, please check your answer. Good Dipanshi. Tanishka, check your answer. Good Dheeraj. Surbhi, check your answer. Indrani, check your answer. Tanay. Stephen, check your answer. Good Nitesh. Okay, just pay attention. Which among the following can lead to cost push inflation in the Indian economy? If there is inflation indexed wages, it means that wages of the employees, workers increase because of increase in inflation. If wages of workers increase, can I say the production cost is going to increase? Agar wage is increasing, the production cost is increasing. Production cost increases means what will it cost? Cost push inflation. So this is correct. Rupee depreciation. Rupee depreciation we discuss, imports into India will become costly. So as the imports into India become costly, it leads to cost push inflation. If you increase indirect taxes, in that case also what will happen? The cost push inflation will take place. Like GST rate on a particular commodity, say price of the commodity is 100, GST rate is equal to 5%. Now the price of the commodity will be equal to 105. Let's say price of the commodity is 100. We decided to increase the GST rate to 12%. Now price of the commodity will increase to 112. Right? So increase in indirect taxes will also lead to cost push inflation. Expansionary monetary policy. Expansionary monetary policy does not lead to cost push. What will it lead to? Demand pull inflation. So right answer is 1, 2 and 3. Did you all get the point? Let's take a question which is little tougher than this question. ठीक है? ये तो आसान था. Let's look at this question. Harsh, I'll come back to your doubt. Don't worry. Harsh, I guess you are getting doubt with respect to inflation index wages, right? You're thinking probably will it lead to demand pull or cost push, right? I'll come back to this at the end of the session. Don't worry. All the students who are still confused whether inflation index wages will lead to demand pull or cost push, don't worry. I'll come back to this doubt at the end of the session. Let's see how many of you will get this right. Good Chandrakant. Shivangi, check your answer. Tina, check your answer. Ajay Singh, check your answer. Jaya, check your answer. Arjun, check your answer. Good Mastan. Abhilash, check your answer. Archit, check your answer. Last part is not visible. Which last part? Increase in rate of inflation in the Indian economy is likely to lead to decrease in imports, increase in exports, rupee depreciation, increase in tax collection. Okay, let's solve this. ठीक है? Okay. सबसे पहले it says inflation in the economy has increased. Increase in rate of inflation. So let's see what is its impact. So when there is increase in inflation, it means prices of domestic goods has increased. If prices of domestic goods has increased, what do you think will happen to my imports? Imports will increase or decrease? Think of it. If prices of domestic goods has increased, we will try to substitute the costly domestic goods with the cheaper foreign goods. So imports into India will increase. If prices of domestic goods has increased, if you try to export those goods to other countries, exports would reduce. So imports is increasing, exports is reducing. Combined effect of these two, what is happening to value of rupee? Tell me. Rupee value will appreciate or depreciate? Rupee value will depreciate. But if rupee value depreciates, what do you think will happen to my imports and exports? Think of it. What will happen to my exports? Exports will increase. And imports, we know, become costly. And because they become costly, it might so happen that imports might reduce also because they're becoming costly. Now there is a problem, because when I'm saying inflation, on one hand I'm saying that imports is increasing and exports is reducing, while on the same hand I'm saying imports is reducing and exports is increasing. And yahan pe that is what I try to test you, and there, that is where we went wrong. Now think of it. What should I construe this? Should I consider impact of inflation as this on imports and exports? Or should I consider impact on imports and exports as this? Which one should I consider? Think of it. Always consider the effect of inflation on the economy, immediate effect. Here, when I'm saying import is reducing and export is increasing, this is not the effect of inflation. What is this effect? This is the effect of rupee depreciation. And this is what? This is effect of inflation. So please do understand. What does it say? Decrease in rate of inflation. It is asking the effect of inflation. It is not asking you the effect of depreciation. सबको समझ में आया? All of you? And this is something which is very, very confusing, where people go wrong. You should always see what immediate effect क्या है inflation का. So you can see decrease in imports, no. Increase in exports, no. Rupee value depreciates, yes. Now where people went wrong? People thought inflation हुआ है, inflation होते ही they said rupee value depreciate हो गया, and rupee depreciation के बाद what is happening? The question is not the effect of rupee depreciation. The question is what? Effect of inflation. You got to know this point? Okay. Now, what will happen to tax collection? Let's see this. Now, let's say there is a particular commodity whose price is 100, and now its price has increased to 200, just as an example. And let's say GST rate is 5%. Now also it is 5%. Tax rate is same, but in this case, how much will you collect as tax collection? 5% of rupees 100 will collect as tax. So you'll collect how much? 5 rupees. In this case, you'll collect 5% of 200. 5% of 200 is how much? Rupees 10. So what has happened to tax collection? Tax collection has increased. Tax collection has increased because of what? Increase in prices. And here, you might well argue that not necessarily, yes, not necessarily it might happen that if the prices have increased, people are buying less of goods. Not necessarily. But I'm not asked not necessarily. What have I asked? Likely. Likely to होने वाला है. Necessarily if I use, then yes, probably not. But I have said likely. Likely, yes, it has happened. And this indeed has happened in the year 22-23. So here, there will be increase in tax collections. So rupee value has depreciated and there is increase in tax collection. Right answer is 3 and 4 only. Did you understand this point, all of you? Okay. Direct, someone is asking about direct tax collections. So direct tax collections can also increase in this particular case. Direct tax collections such as income tax can also increase because of inflation. People's income has increased. Because their income has increased, people will pay more tax. So tax collection of the government might increase even in case of direct tax collections. I hope this part is clear, all of you. थोड़ा और थोड़ा कॉम्प्लिकेट लेते हैं इससे थोड़ा, राइट? Look at this. Please take your time. Good Bhavika, good Shika, good Shailaja, good Indrani, good Abhidya, check your answer. Tanay, Chandrakant, Kushika, Kamalpreet, please check this once again. Good Gaurav. Okay, just hold on. Let's see here. Higher inflation leads to increase in, what is it talking about? Real rate of interest in the economy. It is not talking about the nominal rate. So what is this concept? Let me tell you. Please remember, real rate of interest is simply the rate of interest which is adjusted for inflation. So real rate of interest is nominal rate of interest minus the inflation rate in the economy. That is how you calculate the real rate of interest. Now, for example, let's say I am depositing 100 rupees with the bank, and the rate of interest on this deposit is equal to 5%. So this 5% is what? Market rate of interest, that is nominal rate of interest. And let's say I deposit this for a period of 1 year. एक साल के बाद, how much money will I get? 105. This is what is considered as nominal rate of interest. What is real rate of interest? Real rate of interest is the rate of interest adjusted for inflation. Let's say the year 2022, I deposited 100 rupees in this case. Year 2023, I got back 105. But in this year 2023, inflation rate was equal to 5%. Inflation rate was equal to 5%. So here, if I calculate my real rate of interest, what is my nominal rate of interest? 5%. Inflation rate is 5%. So what is my real rate of interest? 0. Why it is 0? Kyunki now, after 1 year, I am getting how much? 105. And let's say there is a commodity whose price was equal to 100 in the year 2022. Next year, inflation is 5%. So what will be the value of this commodity next year? 105. Its value has increased by 5%. And what is my purchasing power? Has my purchasing power increased? No. My purchasing power has remained the same. So that is why I say that real rate of interest is nominal rate of interest minus inflation. Higher inflation, if inflation increases, what will happen to my real rate of interest? Decreases. Higher inflation benefits bondholders. What do you think? Bondholders. Let's check at this part. Let's say the year is 2021. I have purchased a bond with a face value of 100. Coupon rate is equal to 10%. 2022, I'll get rupees 10 as interest. 2023, I will get rupees 10 as interest. Every year I'm going to get same interest. But 2022, inflation can be 10%. 2023 inflation can be 10%. So prices of goods and services has increased by 10%, but the amount of money which I'm getting is fixed, 10 rupees. So what has happened to value of this 10 rupees next year? You know inflation tax, right? Purchasing power of this 10 rupee has reduced by what percent? 10%. So the purchasing power of this 10 rupee might be just rupees 9. Getting this point? Now some of you might well ask me, sir, आपने सिर्फ bond बताया है, You're not talking about inflation index bond. But unless and otherwise stated, bond is always what? Fixed rate bond. Unless and otherwise mentioned. If it is inflation index bond, probably I'll get benefit or probably I'll not incur a loss. So when I say bond holder, even in prelims also, construe this as a normal bond. Do not consider this bond as inflation index bond. Are you clear with this concept? Okay. Look at the last question. No, Kamalpreet, that is not how you should interpret. The way I told you, just interpret that way. Okay. It's always, it'll not benefit the bondholders. Please take your time. Good Chandrakant. Good Harsh. Good. Shailaja, check your question once again. Tanay, good. Dheeraj, check your response. Sheena, check your response. Good Indrani. Sudhanshu, just check your response. Saugandhika, please check your response. Okay. Which among the following steps are not likely to be taken to counter inflation? Not likely. I told you, not likely ko hala. Let's remove this. Let's solve this as a normal question. Which of the following steps are likely to be taken to counter inflation? To counter inflation, we just saw that we can impose export duty on goods like we did on rice. We will reduce the custom duty on essential goods so that its supply in the Indian economy increases. As the supply increases, we can reduce the inflation, right? Increase the indirect taxes. If you increase indirect taxes, think of it, what will happen? Like if I increase the indirect taxes, the price of the commodity will further increase. यहाँ पे you should not apply the logic that if price of the commodity increase, demand will reduce and inflation will be reduced. But to reduce inflation, सबसे पहले आप क्या कर रहे हो? You are increasing the prices of the commodity further. So you should not increase the indirect taxes. Instead of increasing indirect taxes, what you must do? Reduce the indirect taxes. Fiscal stimulus policy? No. The right answer is 3 and 4 only. Did all of you get the right answer? Right? Hope you understood. Okay. There are other things about WPI, CPI, then headline inflation, core inflation, refined core inflation, consumer food price index. All of this I have already discussed in the last class. So last economic survey. So the same things will remain here. Nothing of a change. So whatever I discussed, that should be sufficient. So let's move to the next point. Next point is balance of payment. Whatever doubts you have, please jot down all your doubts. All your doubts I'll come back to at the end of the session. Need not worry. Okay? Now coming to the next topic about balance of payment. So look at the questions asked with respect to balance of payment in the previous year prelims. Questions have been asked with respect to BOP and the components of current account and capital account. So let's get into this discussion. External sector. I hope everyone knows the concept of BOP. It is systemic record of economic transactions between residents and non-residents for a period of 1 year. So whenever there is an inflow of money, that is put as positive. Outflow of money, it is denoted as negative. Okay, then you know BOP is got two account, current account and capital account. Current account is BOT plus BOI, balance of invisibles. Okay, here I just want you to take a moment and look at the component of balance of invisibles. Here I have denoted two things, primary income and secondary income. So let's understand what is this primary income under BOP and secondary income. Okay, I guess all of you know this concept of BOT, balance of trade. So let's focus on this primary income and secondary income. Primary income is a income, net income that we earn through factors of production. So when we provide for factors of production, we earn income, right? What are the factors of production? Factors of production could be land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. These are the factors of production. On these factors of production, we earn income. For example, on land, rent is earned. On labor, wages are earned. On capital, interest is earned. On entrepreneurship, profit is earned. So just remember this by the keyword WIPR: wages, interest, profit, and rent. So here, balance of payment, we discussed that it includes all the transactions between residents and non-residents. So whatever is the net income which we earn through factors of production, that is part of your primary income. Let me give an example here. Taking this as, say, interest. I need to calculate the net interest. How will I calculate net interest? Net interest is, for example, Indian resident earning interest in other countries. Now, what interest can I earn in other countries? For example, I'm an Indian resident. I might have made investment in bonds or government securities of other countries. On my investment in other countries, I'm earning interest, right? So this interest which I'm earning, what will it be for us? It will be an inflow, positive value. But within India, non-residents earn interest in India. For example, they might earn interest on government securities, they might earn interest on bonds. What is this value for India? It will be considered as what? Outflow. So I need to calculate what is the net interest income. Net interest income will be calculated as interest income earned by Indian residents in other countries minus interest earned by non-residents within India. The same logic I can extend it to profits. Same logic I can extend it to wages. Like we have Indian residents who are earning income in other countries, and that income they're getting it back into India. Similarly, we have foreign residents in India earning income, then that income they're taking it out of India. So net income or net wages is taken into consideration. So इसको हम क्या बोलेंगे? Primary income. Then you have the secondary income. What is this secondary income? Secondary income is simply the transfer payments. Transfer payments, I hope you know what are the transfer payments. Transfer payment means it's an income that people earn without providing for factors of production. Free में आपको पैसा मिल रहा है. Transfer payment. That is called as what? Secondary income. For example, remittances. You are getting remittances from your family member based in other country. You're not providing for any factors of production, right? I'm receiving a donation, I'm getting a grant, or I'm getting a gift. All of this is what? Transfer payment, and this transfer payment is called as secondary income. Did you all get this point here? The difference between primary and secondary. To further elaborate on this, how do you calculate GNP? Any idea? What is the formula for calculate GNP, gross national product? Think of it. GNP is equal to GNP is equal to good Chandrakant, GDP plus net factor income from abroad. So this net factor income from abroad, ये क्या है ये? What is this net factor income? This is this primary income. Are you able to connect the two dots? On one side you have GDP and one side you have balance of payment. I need to find out the net factor income from abroad, which is nothing but my primary income. Clear with this, all of you? Okay. Usually, balance of trade in India, we know it is negative. Balance of invisibles is usually positive. But balance of trade negative value is higher than balance of invisibles. Hence, we face current account deficit. Then capital account is FDI, FPI, external commercial borrowing. Capital account is in surplus. And you can see the trends in the BOP. Generally, in India, this capital account surplus is more than the current account deficit. So, since capital account surplus is more than the current account deficit, usually the balance of payment for India is positive. But you can see in last 5 years, there was 1 year where balance of payment was actually negative. Please remember this. India's merchandise trade balance, that is this BOT, has been negative since 1991. Current account deficit. India's current account was in surplus in the year 2020-21 for the first time in last 17 years. Right now it is in deficit. Trade openness. When I said trade openness, it is also calculated as trade to GDP ratio. Last week we discussed trade to GDP ratio of India kitna hai? Around 50%. So I said this trade openness is nothing but your trade to GDP ratio. India has achieved an all-time high annual merchandise exports of $422 billion. This is our achievement with respect to exports. India's global ranking with respect to merchandise exports and imports, you can see. India's global ranking with respect to service exports and service imports. And you can see here, the last part, top remittance receiving country. And you can see as per World Bank, for the year 22-23, India has received the world's highest remittances of how much? $100 billion. India has the first country in terms of remittances, followed by Mexico and then China. Okay? And then what I have done, I have highlighted the top 3 exports from India. You can go through this: engineering goods, petroleum goods, and gems and jewelry. Top 3 export destinations are USA, UAE, and Netherlands. Top 3 imports into India: crude oil, electronic goods, and gold. Top 3 import, the countries from where we import: China, UAE, and USA. Let's take up the questions now. Look at this question. It's a very easy question. Which among the following are considered as primary income under balance of payment? Primary income. Primary income is the net income earned through providing factors of production. That is the primary income. This unilateral transfer is called as what? Secondary income. If you had to guess the answer to this question, what would you guess? Think of it. Good, Chandrakant. Tanay, check your answer. Kushika, Akshay, good. Good, Divek. Okay, let's look into these things. Expenditure by foreign tourists in India. So this is a transaction that takes place between residents and non-residents. So if they are spending money in India, yes, it is considered as what? Import or export? Quickly. इसको हम क्या बोलेंगे? Export बोलेंगे, import बोलेंगे? It is considered as export of services. It is the export of services. Because when foreign tourists come into India, they're spending money in India, right? So for us, it is exports. So it is included. Masala bonds, I hope everyone knows. Masala bonds are rupee denominated bonds that we issue in other countries. Masala bonds are always part of ECB, external commercial borrowings. And ECBs, as you know, is part of which account? capital account under balance of payment. So yes, masala bond. But this word re-exports of goods and services. What do you mean by re-export? Let's try to understand this re-export. Now let's say about normal exports and compare that with re-exports. Then you'll get more clarity between the two, normal exports and re-exports. With respect to normal exports, let's say I'm talking about mobile phones. In both the cases, it can so happen that in case of normal exports, I manufacture the mobile phones in India. After manufacturing mobile phones, I export the mobile phones to other countries. Possible? Like we manufacture mobile phones such as Macromax, Lava, or other mobile phones, and then we export it. Possible. Second is I can import critical components of mobile phones. After importing critical components of mobile phones, I can undertake an assembly of these critical components, which means what am I doing? I'm doing a value addition. And after doing a value addition, I'm exporting this. Got this point? So obviously, when I say normal exports, can I say it is included in my balance of payment, right? It is part of my balance of payment. But what is re-export? Let's see here. Let's say this is China and this is India. From China, we import mobiles. For example, after importing the mobile phones from China, we found out that these mobile phones are faulty. जैसे कि normally Chinese mobiles ऐसे होते हैं, faulty होते हैं, they don't work, right? So after importing, we found out that the Chinese mobiles are faulty or they do not meet our standards, technical standards. So what we do is, without undertaking any value addition, we export the same mobile phone to China. And this export, we call it as what? Re-export. And look at the difference between this part and this part. यहाँ पे दोनों में difference क्या है? In this case, we are importing raw materials, doing a value addition and then exporting. Here, you are importing a goods. Later, you found that the goods is faulty. It is not meeting your technical standards, and then you are re-exporting. So when I say re-export, we are not talking re-export from the perspective of Indian economy. We are talking about re-export of a particular commodity. ये जो commodity है पहले ही export हुआ था, कहाँ से हुआ था export? China से. And second time it is getting exported once again. That is why it is called as re-export. And please understand, even this re-export is also included in my balance of payment. Did you all get to know the concept of re-export of goods? Okay. So right answer in this case is 1, 2 and 3. If you had to guess the answer to this question, what would you guess? Please keep your cameras on, all of you, so that I can see you. Yeah, what do you think is the answer to this? Which of the following are included in the capital account under balance of payment? Capital account. Good, Shika. Good, Shalaja. Chandrakant, check your answer. Okay. Good, Ankit. Please pay attention. सबसे पहले, we are talking about not current account. We are talking about capital account. Masala bonds. I told you masala bonds are part of external commercial borrowings, and ECB is part of capital account included hai. ADR or GDR, you know what is ADR or GDR? These are the financial instruments that we issue in other countries to raise share capital. So they are also part of our capital account. Interestingly, here we have a word reinvested earnings of foreign companies. What is this reinvested earnings of foreign companies? Now let's say this is Indian economy, and in this Indian economy there is one foreign company. This foreign company has come and made investment. When this makes investment in India, we call this as what? FDI, foreign direct investment. There are certain criteria for FDI. Let's not get into that point. Later, after establishing its base in India, let's say this foreign company makes profits. Usually what will happen, the profit that it earns, that profit it will take it back to the home country. But let's say in this case, the profit that it is earned, it decides to reinvest back in India. So this profits, it is reinvesting. This reinvested profits of the company, it is also considered as FDI. Please understand this. Reinvested earning, even though it is not coming from outside India, but since it is made by a foreign company, even this reinvested profit is also called as FDI, and it is part of your capital account. For example, can you see here? This is directly from the balance of payment of RBI. You can see capital account, you have foreign investment, foreign direct investment, and can you see this? Reinvested earnings. So reinvested earning is part of your foreign direct investment, and it is part of which account? Capital account. And I told you, grants and donations given to governments, it is always considered as what? Transfers. Transfer means what income? Primary income or secondary income? Secondary income. It is always part of secondary income under your current account. Okay. So when you see here, the grants, they are not part of capital account, they are part of the current account. So right answer is 2, 3 and 4. Are we clear? Okay. If you have to guess the answer to this question, with respect to accommodating transactions under BOP, consider the following statements. Good Chandrakant? Good Abhilash? Good Shailaja? Good Ankit? Some Harsh, you need to check it. Okay, let's understand this. There are some people for whom I need to understand, discuss this concept, accommodating transaction. Let's see this. Financial year ends on March 31st, as we know. As on March 31st, balance of payment could be positive or balance of payment could be negative. Let's say positive value is $10 billion and negative value is $10 billion. I'm just giving example. Two different scenarios are possible. एक तरफ पॉजिटिव भी हो सकता है, एक तरफ नेगेटिव भी हो सकता है. When there is positive balance of payment, what does it mean? That we had surplus money in the balance of payment, right? If there is surplus money in my balance of payment, what we do? We put this surplus where? Into forex reserves. And this forex reserves, in this case, what is going to happen to my forex reserves? Forex reserves will increase, right? And when we increase this, what happens is balance of payment comes back to 0. This is as on April 1st. Balance of payment becomes equal to 0 because whatever was the surplus here, the $10 billion we have put into our forex reserves. But April 1st, I need to make this BOP is equal to 0. So what we do is we have what is called as accommodating transactions. These transactions are done by RBI to make BOP is equal to 0. So after this, what we have is a concept of changes in reserves. This is what is called as the accommodating transaction. The changes in reserves will be same as the value of balance of payment, but with a opposite sign. Opposite sign means अगर यहाँ पे मेरा balance of payment positive है, तो changes in reserves क्या रहेगा? It will be negative. So it's like saying, if you look at the actual BOP, you have current account, you have capital account, and let's say I have BOP which is like surplus $10 million. This is as on March 31st. As on April 1st, I need to make this BOP is equal to 0. So what I have is changes in reserves, and this changes in reserves will be same as BOP, that is plus $10 million, but with a negative sign. So positive plus negative क्या होगा? As on April 1st, BOP will come back to 0. Similarly, if BOP is minus $10 billion, I need to make this BOP is equal to 0. It means my changes in reserve will be $10 billion, but with a positive sign. So this changes in reserves, this itself, what we call this as accommodating transaction. So यहाँ पे what people get confused is, if changes in reserves is denoted as positive, they think forex reserves has increased. Has the forex reserves increased? No. It changes in reserves is positive means balance of payment was negative. Balance of payment is negative means forex reserves are actually reduced. Got this point, all of you? So what do you think is the answer? Now give me the correct answer. Quickly. First one is तो correct है. Positive reserve changes denote increase in forex reserves? No. Positive reserve changes, if reserve changes is positive, it means balance of payment is negative. Balance of payment is negative means my forex reserves has reduced. So right answer is A. Okay. Fine. Look at this question. Which of the following are likely to lead to increase in current account deficit in India? Take your time. Good, Stephen. Good, Dipanshi. Good, Kamalpreet. Good, Saugandhika. Okay. Let's look at this part. Current account deficit किस लिए हो सकता है? If there is increase in fiscal deficit. If fiscal deficit has increased, it means it leads to inflation. And we saw that if inflation increases, what will happen to my imports? Imports will increase and exports will decrease. And what will happen to because of this current account? Current account will become deficit. So that is why fiscal deficit and current account deficit together, what are they called as? They are called as twin deficit. So this is correct. This is correct. Adoption of Fed tapering by US Fed Bank. How will I link this to the current account deficit? If there is a Fed tapering, what will happen to value of rupee? Rupee value will depreciate. If rupee value depreciates, what will happen to imports into India? Imports into India will become costly, because of which what will happen to current account deficit? Current account deficit will increase. Look at this question. Which among the following steps are not likely to be taken to reduce current account deficit? Not likely. Look at the word not likely. Chandrakant. To counter or to reduce, let's solve this as a normal question. Likely to be taken to reduce current account deficit. I need to reduce current account deficit. It means I need to reduce my imports and increase my exports. Now, if I reduce custom duty on non-essential goods, what will happen to my exports? Imports. Imports will increase. This is incorrect. If I impose export duty, what will happen to my exports? Exports will decrease. This is also incorrect. Internationalization of rupee. Internationalization of rupee can actually help us reduce current account deficit. The reason is, right now, when you're doing an international trade in terms of dollar, whenever there is large scale fluctuation in value of dollar, it affects our current account, like what is happening right now. Dollar value has appreciated. Because the dollar value has appreciated, what has happened to value of rupee? Rupee value has depreciated, which in turn has led to current account deficit. Now imagine, let's say we are not doing a trade in terms of dollar, we are doing a trade in terms of rupees. Then we can actually reduce our current account deficit. To a large extent, we will insulate ourselves from exchange rate risk. Got this point? So it says not likely. Not likely means 2 and 3 only. Vinita, I'll come back to your doubt. Don't worry, at the end of the session. Okay. Concept of NIIP I have discussed in last year's economic survey. India's forex reserves also I have discussed in last year's economic survey. I discussed what are the components of forex reserves and all those things. Okay. If you have to guess the answer to this question, what would you guess? Which of the following best describes the Greenspan-Goodhart rule? If you have watched my last year's economic survey, you will get to know the right answer. Good Chandrakant? Good Tanay? Good Shika? Good Akshay? Good Shailaja? Good. A country's forex reserve should be equal to short-term external debt. That is how you know the adequacy of forex reserves. What do you think is the answer to this question? Consider the following statements. The entire forex reserves are always maintained within India. India's forex reserves are higher than its external debt. What do you think is the answer? Think of it. Okay. Look at the first one. It says forex reserves, are they always maintained in India? Not necessarily. Like if you see forex reserves can also be in the form of deposit with other central banks, or it can be in the form of deposit with the overseas branches of commercial banks. Not necessarily. So this is incorrect. India's forex reserves are higher than its external debt. If you see, our forex reserves are somewhere around 560. 2 days back, it was highlighted that it has increased to $580 billion. But still, our external debt is around 610. So the right answer in this case is neither one nor two. Okay, now coming to the concept of external debt for India. With respect to India's external debt, I am going to take up the discussion of what do you mean by sovereign external debt, non-sovereign external debt, what is included in sovereign external debt, and all of those things one by one, which can be important. Okay, just concentrate here. External debt of India. It basically means the money that we are borrowing from outside India. And when we borrow money from outside India, please understand that we are not necessarily borrowing in terms of dollars. We can also borrow in terms of rupees, right? So here, depending upon who is borrowing from outside India, there are two types of debt: sovereign debt and non-sovereign debt. When I say sovereign debt, as the name suggests, sovereign in this case means who? Government. So when the government is borrowing money, that only it is called as sovereign debt. In fact, if a government owned PSU, public sector undertaking like ONGC, Coal India Limited, if they are borrowing money from outside India, it is not sovereign debt. That becomes non-sovereign debt. So it's only the government debt. And what is the sovereign debt? You can see loans from multilateral institutions and foreign governments, which the central government is borrowing. FPI investment in government securities. If FPI is making investment in government security, including SDL, it is called as sovereign debt, because we owe money to non-residents, right? And interestingly, look at this. SDR allocations by IMF. I hope everyone knows about SDR, special drawing rights issued by IMF. These SDR, special drawing rights, I hope you all must be knowing, they are part of our forex reserves, right? Apart from being accounted as part of the forex reserves, according to IMF's accounting mechanism, which is called as BMP6, according to IMF's accounting mechanism BM6, even this SDR should be accounted as the external debt of a particular country. So this SDR is also part of external debt. The reason or the logic here is, let's say we decided not to be the member of IMF. So let's say we discontinued our membership of IMF. That time we have to give back this SDR, right? So since we are required to give back this SDR, it becomes what? A kind of liability. But it's in true sense not a debt, because that we can use it for ourselves. It's only for purpose of accounting. For example, instrument classification of India's external debt at the end of 2022. 1, 2, 3. Can you see this part? IMF SDR. It is considered as part of government debt. So do not get confused. So SDR is part of your forex reserves also, and it is part of your external debt also. External debt means it becomes part of the sovereign debt. Okay. Next you can see non-sovereign debt includes external commercial borrowings. They include trade credits and NRI deposits. Trade credit basically means that one Indian company might be buying certain goods, machineries from another foreign company, but for buying those goods and machineries, it is not immediately making payment. It might decide to make payment later. Like Air India buying aircraft from Boeing, but it is not making immediate payment. It might make payment at a future date. That is called as what? Trade credit. NRI deposit, I hope it is self-explanatory. And you can see denomination of debt. In what currency is our debt denominated? It can be denominated in terms of foreign currency, and it is also in rupee denomination. What is rupee denominated external debt? You can see rupee denominated NRI deposits. NRIs, if they are maintaining certain deposits in India, they can maintain deposits in terms of rupees. That money is, which NRIs are depositing in India, for us what it is? It's a liability that we have to pay it back. So it becomes rupee denominated debt. FPI investment in government securities, FPI investment in corporate bonds, and even masala bonds also. All of this is rupee denominated debt. Duration long term divided by or short term. Long term debt for India is higher than short term debt. And then we have this concept of debt service ratio. And look at this concept of debt service ratio. It is calculated as total debt service payments divided by total receipts in the current account. So let's quickly look into this concept. Debt service ratio is debt service payments divided by current account, and the word which is important is receipts. Receipt means how much money we are getting in the current account. So let's see this debt service payment. Hota kya hai? Let's say our total stock of external debt is equal to $500 billion. It's just an example. And let's say in the year 22-23, out of this $500 billion, the principal amount to be paid back is, for example, $20 billion. This is the amount which is maturing this year and we are required to pay it back. And apart from that, we are also required to pay interest on this external debt. And let's say that is equal to $5 billion. So look at the word, ek hai? Debt service payment. It means how much is the payment that I need to make to service my external debt. So it's principal plus interest payment. So let's say it is equal to how much? $25 billion. And look at the denominator. It says current account, word is receipts. This is very important. Here we are not taking into account the entire balance in the current account. We are taking into account only the receipts part. How do you get receipts in the current account? You get receipts in the current account through exports of goods and services. You get receipts in the form of remittances. So let's say this current account receipts is equal to $100 billion. So if I calculate my debt service ratio, it will be 25, 20 plus 5 divided by 100 into 100. So this debt service ratio could be in this case equal to 25%. So when I say debt service ratio is equal to 25%, what does it mean? In simple English, it means 25% of my current account receipts, I am using it to pay my external debt or to service my external debt. So when I say service my external debt, I'm not just paying interest, I'm also repaying some loan which is maturing this year. Why is it important? It is important in the context of Sri Lanka and Pakistan. Think what could have happened to debt service ratio of Sri Lanka and Pakistan? Lower or higher? Think very, very high. It could be very high in case of countries. That is why it is important. So you must have heard or you must have come across this question of ICR, interest coverage ratio, in one of the earlier prelims. On that line, you could get a question about DSR, debt service ratio, because it is in news. Getting this point, all of you? So you can see debt service ratio for India is just around 8%, which is good. It means only 8% of our current account receipts, we are using it to service our external debt. And as of now, you can see our total external debt is $610 billion. External debt to GDP ratio is 19%. Our sovereign debt is much lower than our non-sovereign debt. So, if you have to answer this question, what do you think is the answer? Answer to the question asked in prelims 2019. Most of India's external debt is owed by government entities. No. All of India's external debt is denominated in US dollars. No, because we have even rupee denominated debt. So answer is neither one nor two. Good. Look at the practice question. Good, Shailaja. Good, Chandrakant. Vipin, just take your answer. Good, Aishwarya. Good, Srinath. Okay. Government borrowings, yes. Masala bonds issued by Indian companies. It is not sovereign external debt. It is just external debt. FPI investment, yes. SDR allocations, yes. So answer is 1, 3 and 4. Practice MCQ number 53. Answer in this case is B. Total external debt service payments to current receipts of balance of payment. Okay. Here I have tried to cover the most important chapters of the economic survey. As far as other chapters are concerned, like chapter number 2 or chapter about social infrastructure and other chapters, they are very, very factual, and they are like a lot of things related to facts, figures, and all those things are covered, which I don't think are really that important. So I have tried to cover most of the things which are important from the perspective of your prelims examination. Like one thing which is still remaining is the topic of the foreign trade policy 22-23. That's a new foreign trade policy which has been unveiled, but it has been covered in the DNS dated April 1st. So when the foreign trade policy was unveiled, immediately in the next day, we have covered the foreign trade policy in much greater detail. In fact, it was covered for almost like more than 30 minutes. So you can go through that foreign trade policy. In spite of going through the foreign trade policy, if you still have any doubts, you can always reach out to me. Okay. You have my email ID, you have a number, you can always reach out to me. Apart from that, what I have also done is some important trends, some important aspects I have incorporated in the PPT itself. April 1 DNS, yes. For example, with respect to infrastructure, like if you have to guess the answer to this question, what do you think is the answer to this? Okay, these are some things which you should know. What I've done is for such questions, I have incorporated the necessary things into slides itself, PPT. So as you can see, the prelims pointers about NIP I have incorporated here. So I have incorporated how much money we are going to spend, where we are going to spend, what is the funding pattern, who is hosting this platform. I have highlighted this with respect to NIP. I have done the same thing with respect to NMP, National Motivation Pipeline. Then National Logistic Policy, I have highlighted the details. Then I have highlighted the present installed capacity of electricity in terms of different sources of energy and which renewable energy is accounting for the highest share. This becomes important because in prelims 2022 there was this question about renewable energy. So just I have incorporated this in a kind of slide. With respect to agriculture, I have highlighted what is the share of agriculture, then which crops, what is the share of different subsectors of agriculture, then what is the trend in the growth rates, the prelims pointers, trends in gross capital formation in agriculture, trends in cropping pattern, then trends in crop production, largest producer of crops, agriculture imports and exports, what is the largest exporter and importer of different agriculture commodities. Because you must be knowing, in one of the earlier prelims there was a question about which agriculture commodity accounts for highest import into India, and the answer for that question was vegetable oil or edible oil account for the largest share of import. So that is what I have highlighted. Similarly, you can see the top three agriculture export commodities is rice. Rice, which is both basmati as well as non-basmati rice included, followed by marine products and sugar. So these are very factual things which I have incorporated in the PPT. So I hope you will be able to go through the PPT, the remaining things. Okay. So economic survey, like I said, part 2 is very factual. Those facts and figures are not really important. So what I've done is, instead of just focusing on facts and figures, I've converted this into conceptual questions, and we have discussed a lot of questions related to economic survey. Okay. So I hope you'll be able to go to the PPT and understand on your own the remaining trends, facts, figures. Okay. Okay. So I'll stop here. Those of you who have doubts, you can start asking your doubts. Yeah, Abhilash. Okay, Ravindra Kumar is asking when will the test be uploaded? Ravindra Kumar, I'll incorporate the questions from part 1 and part 2 and will ensure that the test is uploaded for tomorrow. Okay. Good afternoon, Abhilash. Yes. Yeah. No, here, when I say centrally sponsored schemes, they are divided into different types, like core of the core schemes, and optional schemes. And for these schemes, the funding pattern is well defined. I don't think there is any such scheme जहाँ पे 100% funding is coming from the center. Uh-huh. It's a like a flow. It's a flow concept. Every year, let's say we are entering the year 2023. So for the year 2023, we need to think ki how much is my external debt service payment, how much is the loan amount which is maturing in this year, plus how much is the interest I need to repay on my previous loans. Then I take into account my current account receipts. That is how you need to calculate DSR. It's on a yearly basis. Uh-huh. It is every month contribution. Which one? CPS? What is that? Same. Yeah. Yeah. Welcome, Abhilash. Next is Vinuta. One second. Yes, Vinita. Good afternoon, Vinita. No, 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 no. Like panda bonds are basically yuan denominated bonds which are issued by other countries in China. So it's like Pakistani company wants to raise yuan loans from China. Pakistani company can issue panda bonds in China. So bonds, as you know, they are specifically used for borrowing money. ADR and GDR not for borrowing money. It's for raising share capital. So the idea of these things are completely different. Clear, Vinita? Okay, one second. Let me. Ha, Vinita. Okay. Mm-hmm. NBFCs allowed as resolution applicants. I guess they should be allowed. I need to check it because NBFCs can be dragged under IBC for sure. And if one NBFC wants to take over another NBFC, yes, they should be allowed. They should be allowed as resolution applicants. Okay. Uh-huh. No, 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 no. Here you must understand GDR is something that we are issuing not to borrow money. GDR is something which you are issuing to raise share capital. Now, for example, let's say from China, obviously we will not do it, but it's just an example. Let's say you have an Indian manufacturing company which wants to raise share capital from China. To raise share capital or share from China, it will go for issuance of GDR. On the other hand, let's say there's a particular infrastructure company which wants to raise loans. To raise loans from China, it can go for panda bonds. Yeah, yeah. So I will send you a link. Can someone check in which particular current affairs class I've discussed Nostro and Vostro? Santosh, just check it and let me know. There's one current affairs class which I discussed about this, right? Just let me know. We'll let you know, Vinita. He's just checking it. As of now, they cannot issue shares in India directly. Bonds, bonds. I guess they should be allowed to do so, but shares they cannot issue it. But they can do it only in the IFSC, International Financial Service Center. Now only we have allowed. Sorry. Yeah, both we can raise in other countries. Yeah. Uh huh. Nothing. See here, the problem with respect to India is like on an annual basis, we are importing almost like 980 tons of gold, which amounts to 40 to 50 billion dollars. In even though we are one of the largest importer of gold, we are not been able to dictate the gold prices in the market, international market. So whatever price is already set, we are taking the gold at that particular price. So there's a very famous line which says India is a price taker rather than price setter. So we are not able to set the price. And when we found out the reason as to why we are not been able to set the price, we found out that when we are importing gold from other countries, we are not been able to aggregate the demand for gold. Like we have different jewelry companies in India. When they import gold from other countries, they are buying gold individually, not as a cumulatively together. Now imagine we all are gold company. Individually, if you're buying gold from other country, you'll not be able to dictate price. But let's say we all come together and combinedly we decide to buy gold from other countries. Since we are buying gold in bulk, can I say we can dictate the prices? So that's the basic idea. Aggregation of demand is what is important. It's similar to like small and marginal farmer. Individually, if you go and sell the produce in the market, you'll not get good price. But if small and marginal farmers come together, part of FPO, they will be able to get good price. So almost same concept. Yeah, yeah, please, please. Transferable development rights basically, like, let's say you own a piece of land along a road, and let's say government wants to widen the road. To widen the road, the government has to acquire your property, your land, for which the government has to pay compensation. Let's say the government doesn't want to pay you compensation to take over the land. Instead of paying compensation, government will give you TDR, transferable development right. That transferable development right, you can sell it to a real estate company, and by selling it to a real estate company, you will get the amount. So let's say the government has given you transferable development right, and you think that the value of the transferable development right is around 10 lakh. So I can transfer it to a real estate company. Using that TDR, the real estate company can build an additional floor. Like a real estate company has been given a permission to build only 10 floor. It can build additional 11th floor by buying this TDR from you. That's how it works. Yeah, it's only that you'll get the money not from the government, you'll get the money from the real estate company. No, only in buying and selling of land, purchase and sale of land. It is not in with respect to construction. In fact, we allow FDI in construction of township, commercial buildings, and all those things. See, idea is if banks are getting long-term loans at a lesser rate of interest, they can reduce both long-term rates as well as short-term rates, not necessarily both. Idea is when RBI gave long-term loans to the banks, they gave long-term loans at a lesser rate of interest. But if banks get loans, banks can give loans at a lesser rate of interest both for short-term and long-term. Yeah, Santosh has responded. Vinuta, it is current affairs class 6. Okay. DNS. I'll just check and let you know. I have a number. I have a number. I'll just message you. Don't worry. Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, Chandrakant. Uh-huh. Currency with the why? I told you what is currency with the bank. Currency with the bank is the normal currency which the bank will keep with itself to run its day-to-day business. It has got nothing to do with CRR. Yeah. Currency that yeah, you should not connect it to currency with the bank. That is completely different. On day-to-day basis, it will maintain some amount of currency that remains same only. Yeah. Yeah, you understood now. You are able to connect the dot. That is same as LCR, but I not deliberately use the word LCR because some people might not know LCR. So that's the reason. So it is like LCR. LCR, though you have to maintain all the time. 30 days you have to keep liquidity with yourself, right? India is the largest exporter of pulses. I don't think India is the largest exporter of pulses. We need to check the latest statistics. Huh? Largest producer, but I don't think it's largest exporter. We need to check the agriculture statistics, but I don't think it is correct. Sugar can also be not the largest exporter. With respect to sugarcane, I guess our ranking must be either first or second. But since you specifically asked about export of sugarcane, no. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Indrani. Yeah, Indrani. Yeah, you're audible. Go on. Yes. Yeah. Okay, here also there are certain complications. Like in the NPS account, also there are two types of accounts, tier 1 account and tier 2 account. So here the person can choose where he would want to make investment in. It's up to the person. So there are different types of funds where depending upon the level of risk involved, the person can choose. It is there. But I have not discussed it because I don't think UPSC will get into those technical details about NPS. Okay. So, but if you want to know details about it, you can just type National Pension Scheme FAQ. So you will get a document. In that document, they are discussing in detail about tier 1 account, tier 2 account, and all of those things. Sure, sure. Welcome. Next. Yes, Manchuk. Good afternoon. Old pension scheme, is it available for non-governmental persons? Need to check that. I don't think it is available because it's right now it is only for NPS. Only NPS is available. OPS is not available for us now. So if you want to enroll for a pension, we have to enroll only for NPS now. State. Yeah. Uh-huh. See here, with respect to other deposits of RBI, they are actually part of your M0 as well as M1 and in fact M3 also. This is RBI, this is as per RBI's definition. But this other deposits of the RBI are so minuscule, so small as compared to demand deposits and time deposits, we tend to ignore this. And that is what even NCRT has also done. So what we can just assume is to make it much more simpler, you can just ignore this other deposit of the RBI. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Okay. Next is one second. One second, Vinita, just hold on. Yes, Pratik. Good afternoon. Yes. Okay. Mm-hmm. Crowding in effect say. Uh-huh. Crowding in effect say, I don't think, how do you think it is leading to appreciation? Because here you have to talk, you have to understand this in the context of the other currencies also, right? Okay. I can put it another way also. Like if there's a crowding in effect, there is increase in rupee supply. In that case, what will happen? If there is increase in rupee supply, what will happen to rupee value? Yes, Pratik? Yes. So I guess here it is not a very straightforward thing ki crowding in and crowding out. Say what is going to happen to value of rupee? We cannot relate it. I think we are just comparing apples with oranges. More focus is like we have to see what is happening to the dollar. That is what you have to do. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, no, no. When we say, since you have asked, when I say ECB, external commercial borrowing, they can be foreign currency denominated bond, they can be foreign currency convertible bond, they can be foreign currency exchangeable bonds, and they can be masala bonds. So foreign currency denominated bond, as it says, it is in terms of foreign currency. Even these two are also in terms of foreign currency. This is in terms of rupee. All this is part of my external commercial borrowing. Yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah. Mhm. No, it's like if there is increase in external commercial borrowing, it means you are allowing the Indian companies to borrow more in terms of dollar from other country, and that dollar is coming into India. Here, ultimately, here you talk about the end effect. End effect is like dollar is coming into India, right? Yeah. Yes, 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 yes. Yeah. Sure, sure, Pratik. Yeah, Vinuta, one second. Praveen, just hold on. I'll come to you. Yeah, Vinuta. Good afternoon, Vinuta. SDF? SDF has replaced the reverse repo only in the monetary policy corridor. Only in the corridor it has replaced it. But SDF and reverse repo they continue to exist. Yeah, yeah. But it's like if you are a bank, in that case, what we will do is you have to wait for RBI's notification for reverse repo. Sorry, sorry. It's like fine tuning means on a short term basis you are making small changes to repo. So it's basically the short term repos. Like repos maturity period could range from 1 day to 3 years. So when we are focusing on short term repo, we call it as fine tuning. Long term, which is like 1 to 3 years, that we call it as LTR, long term repo operations. Uh, Ideally, when RBI comes out with the repo notification, right? It could be like 1 day, 7 days, 14 days, 28 days, and 56 days. So I saw RBI's report 1 year back. So short term repo was up to say 56 days. Okay. Sure. Welcome. Yes, Praveen. Your mic is on, Praveen. I'm not able to hear you. Praveen, just take the mic from your end. Meanwhile, I'll take Ria's query and I'll come back to you. Okay. Just check the mic from your end. Yes, Ria. Yes, Ria. Your voice is very low. Yeah, yeah, you're audible. Go on. Immediate effect is if there is increase in prices of domestic goods, right? If within India the prices of goods has increased, what will it try to do? You'll try to substitute the costly domestic goods with cheaper foreign goods. Like the cost of this marker in India has increased. Since it is increased, what will I try to do? I will try to buy a cheaper marker from other country. So what is going to happen to imports? Imports is going to increase, right? Imports into India is increasing. So it's like saying the prices of domestic goods is higher. If something is costly in India, what will you do? You try to buy the same goods from other countries, right? Yeah, yeah. Exactly, exactly. Sure, sure. Praveen, did you check your mic? No, it's not working. Okay, Praveen, you have a number. You can give me a call after the class. Okay, we'll speak on the phone. Yeah, Divek. हाँ दिवेक बोलिए. Mm-hmm. Can? Yeah, they have been allowed to participate in the IBC process now. So they can act as resolution applicants. Yeah, sure. Fine then. Thank you so much. All the best. Do well for your prelims examination. Okay. And you can always reach out to me for any kind of queries or any kind of doubts. Thank you so much. It was wonderful taking your economic survey class. Thank you so much.